Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 19th, and we are the Department of Ag in Bloomfield. Everybody in person and online. I think we're going to start and do the instructions to interpretation. So Alejandro, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Alejandro Arrieta. I will be one of two interpreters working with you today. I am with my colleague Diego Pons. I'm going to provide interpretation instructions in Spanish. I'll come back and repeat them in English in just a moment, and then we'll get started. So thank you for your patience. Hola a todos, gracias por tenerme aquí con ustedes. Mi nombre es Alejandro Arrieta, estoy con mi colega Diego Pons. Hoy seremos sus dos intérpretes en este espacio. Queremos practicar la justicia del lenguaje lo más posible, que nos indica que cada persona debe de poder participar en el idioma de su corazón o en el idioma de su preferencia lo más posible. Si usted no es completamente bilingüe en inglés y en español, verá un icono terráqueo que va a aparecer en su pantalla en la parte inferior a mano derecha. No lo van a ver todavía ya que no hemos prendido la interpretación, pero al encenderlo lo van a ver ahí. Y si no lo ven, busquen bajo el menú con los tres puntitos que dice más o more en inglés. Como sea que aparezca para usted, seleccione el español y si tiene algún problema con la interpretación, por favor avísenos en los mensajes lo más pronto posible para ayudarle. Voy a repetir esto en inglés antes de prender la interpretación para seleccionar nuestro idioma y comenzar. Gracias por su paciencia. All right, thank you for your patience as I provided those instructions in Spanish first. In this space, we do want to practice language justice as much as possible, which indicates to us that every person should be able to fully engage in the language of their heart or in the language of their preference. So if you are not fully bilingual in both English and Spanish, you will also select your language if you are here on Zoom. You will select English. Once we turn on the interpretation, you'll see a globe icon appear on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And if you don't see it there, check under the three-dot menu that says more. However it pops up for you, make sure you select your language so that we can all participate in the conversation meaningfully. Con eso ya vamos a entender la interpretación y vamos a comenzar. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to our host to turn on the interpretation for everyone to select their language so that we can get started. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think just as a reminder to speak slowly so that your patient can interpret. So I'm going to call the meeting to order today and do a roll call of the commission members. So we'll start. Simon Martinez, Jeff McCullough, present. Nick Trainer,
Here. All right.
Catherine Bedell.
Yes, here.
Elena Miller, here. David Block,
present.
Roberto Mesa, Harrison Top.
Present.
Great, thank you. It's great to have you all here. It's great to have members of the staff of the Department of Ag, and welcome to our visitors and our little small visitor here this morning. First thing on the agenda is to approve of the meeting agenda. So if I can have a motion for that, please.
Meeting agenda for today.
Thank you, David. There's been a motion. Is there a second? And a second. A motion and a second to approve today's meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Motion carries. Yes. Hopefully you all had the opportunity to look at the October meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to those? If not, I need a motion to approve those.
This is Catherine.
Meeting minutes.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the motion. Catherine, do you second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the approval of the meeting minutes? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving October meeting minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. think we're still getting some feedback. Uh, At this time, we have the opportunity for any public comments that would like to address the members of the commission or commissioner or members of the Department of Ag. Amara, do we have it online? Just a little time. All right, well, hearing that, we will move on to the commissioner's report and turn it over to Commissioner Egbert.
Thank you, Chair Pepler. Great seeing everyone. Welcome to Broomfield, both in person and virtually. We had yesterday the public forum doing in advance of our Ag Commission meetings. We actually did virtual and had about 45 participants on, a number of the Ag Commission members. So thank you for those who joined us. We did yesterday, like we do our public forums in person, really talk about kind of who we are as a department, what we do and what our strategic priorities are. And hopefully that was beneficial to the folks who joined. And that will, I think, be made available on the web after yesterday's meeting. Big picture update, and Jordan and Madison will get into more specifics, but as you all know, we've created our 3-year strategic plan. We continue to lean into our strategic priorities, the top 4 of which are expanding market access for producers, both at home and abroad, advancing stewardship, of course, soil, water, climate, and really focusing on helping implement the water plan, Colorado Water Plan. Advancing next generation leadership and really investing in youth leadership development. And then the 4th is around our animal health and welfare objectives. This year, really focusing on standing up our non-lethal management program, especially regarding wolf reintroduction. I'll touch on each of those in some way, just to show the progress we're making and the work we have going on. So market access, actually one of the latest updates, and we have Robert Sakata here with us. CDA was just part of a trade mission to Taiwan and South Korea that was led by the Lieutenant Governor and co-organized by OEDIT, which is the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, and CDA. And we were able to bring representatives from Colorado Wheat, Colorado Beef, and the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union for this 9-day mission abroad, along with a rather large cohort from the space industry, quantum industry, a lot of the tech and economic development side of Colorado's business. I don't know if Robert's open to be putting him on the spot right now, but since he is just back from this trip, would love just a short update of your time abroad, Robert.
Sure. I still have jet lag though. So I just got back Sunday evening. It was an amazing trip. Like Mr. Greenberg said, we had great meetings. Usually in each country we had a weekday and a beef day and met with individuals. Both countries are really dependent on importation of food because their land masses are so small. So especially Taiwan, really want to secure a better partnership and looking toward those. And it was great to hear that Colorado was highly regarded for their quality of beef. And so they're really looking for that. That's a market that's expanding for them. And also the amount of wheat. Both countries are moving away from rice and more toward wheat products, adapting their recipes for their culture, which was really interesting. I got to visit many bakeries and sample the products and how they actually like a high gluten wheat because they like their breads a little softer. They don't like the crisp breads that we're used to. Now, as Commissioner Greenberg said, I had a couple of breakout meetings with the Lieutenant Governor. We actually got to meet with the Vice President of Taiwan, which is really a fantastic opportunity. Again, they're really looking to build relationships around the world, mainly for political security reasons, but it was great that agriculture was represented there as well. And then I'd like to show off this little piece of artwork was actually, we also met with the Indigenous Peoples Council in Taiwan. They have 19 different groups within the country, really working to preserve those cultures, including their language, and have a wonderful program and had the opportunity to meet with them. So hopefully I'll be able to share. Feel free to come up and ask me about those events. I'm welcome to share that information with you. So Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Robert. And very grateful that Robert was able to go. I had a last minute change of plans. And so Robert was officially our special envoy and my new senior advisor for this trip. So very much appreciate him jumping on board. So that's an example of our work abroad and just an example of the bigger picture. John and Ashley and our international markets team, last year they did an outbound mission to Taiwan. We hosted an inbound Taiwanese delegation in October. And from that relationship, we've been able to ship 3 containers worth of Colorado beverages from the beverage industry to Taiwan. So what we do is, again, kind of, Robert's trip was very diplomatic, but there's business ties to helping expand business for our producers as well. Now on the local foods front, lots going on here as always. I think the one I want to highlight is our community food access tax credit is open. So as y'all know, we've been rolling through our one-time community food access grants, which are for small retailers and small farmers. And those grants, I think we have over 120, 130 recipients, and we have some examples in your packet of how those dollars have impacted businesses around the state. It's been really neat being able to work with a whole different community than CDA has in the past, both urban and rural business owners, but a lot of folks, especially in retail, who have never had a reason to work with CDA. And I was privileged to go out to the Ghana International Market in Aurora for an announcement of our tax credit. The Ghana International Market is one of our grantees. They were able to almost double the size of their cold storage to expand their fresh food sales. And it was so neat being out there. There were customers coming in and out and shopping in the new cold storage. And it's really allowed them to both expand what they can offer and then also potentially reach new producers and new farmers to be their suppliers. So really neat program that is now, the grant program is over and we're now transitioning into tax credit. So similar makeup of the program, similar eligibility, but really focused now on this longer term application for the tax credit for these small businesses. Mickey Davis and Adonai Cuevas on our markets team are leading this charge, and they're doing a fantastic job, not just with administration, but really building relationships. It was really neat, again, at the market, seeing how those business owners came up and give Mickey a big hug and have her cell phone on speed dial. And that's the kind of relationship that we're trying to build with our businesses and grantees. So those are some examples on the market access front. On stewardship, soil, water, climate, plenty going on here. One thing I want to highlight is our second tax credit for the department is it's a longer on-ramp than the community food access. So we're actually getting ready to draft the rules for the ag stewardship tax credit. This was a bill we passed last legislative session. It will provide a essentially tiered tax credit structure for producers who implemented certain regenerative ag practices in the tax year they're applying for. Now, the total for this program is about $3 million, probably a little less, all said and done. So not a lot of money based on the likely eligible producers out there. But it will be available starting in 2026. So this winter we'll start the rules. Those rules will come to you sometime in the spring, but we'll make sure that you're up to speed on this. This rulemaking, in my mind, is part of the larger conversation around regenerative ag. And how do we define practices in a way that makes sense on the ground, that are rigorous, and that actually drive the intent of the legislation forward? And how do we prioritize as applicants come into the door, knowing we're going to be well oversubscribed that $3 million. So just a heads up, but that is going to be coming our way in the coming months. And then water, of course, when he's wearing his other title of our Ag Water Policy Advisor, it's just been really, really invaluable for CDA to have Robert and a full-time water position who can travel the state. We have Paul Kmeyer out on the Western Slope doing all our salinity work in the Colorado River Basin. And we are now able to lean into policy, as well as I mentioned, the water plan implementation. So we are in a position where we can actually work with local governments and support their planning efforts around how do you protect agriculture while enhancing growth in your communities. So that's one example of a place CDA is hoping to be more present. Robert's already engaged with a number of local government entities. And of course, we are not in a position to tell local governments how to do their jobs, but to be a supporting agency in thinking through not only the value of agriculture for local communities, but tools and resources for local government to integrate agricultural protection and production into their planning. So more to come on that, plenty more, but that is a very exciting new capacity for us. On our next generation work, we have closed the application period for our Ag Workforce Development Program for businesses. So this is our paid internship program. Oh, and Harrison, I see your hand up. Pause and let you jump in.
Harrison, you're muted.
It was a regenerative ag question. It may be better suited in Hollis's, but I don't. It was you were talking about the tax credit and what we were going to do to build it in the department, and it sparked a question me. Do you want me to ask it or should I wait?
Sure, go ahead.
So we had the day that IRU is here, which is that some buyers have come to us saying, well, what about regenerative certification? I personally don't want to do any more certifications and audits. However, it does seem to be, the day seems to be here that buyers are starting to ask for it. I think as we begin to think about regenerative tax credits, as we begin to think about a lot of these details within how CDA is building their programming, not maybe thinking about how there's a regen add-on to the organic program or something that we can do that's going to start meeting the demands of consumers, and offering a program that is as reputable as the organic program. So just a note that I think beyond these financial incentives is going to become increasingly salient for growers like me and other organic growers.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Harrison. Would love to keep that conversation going.
Yeah, Harrison, this is Jordan. Last session too, there was a proposed bill that would create another tax credit based upon regenerative practices. And there's been some conversations, and I think Senator Simpson's been involved in some conversations about bringing back a bill this next session just to define what regenerative means in state statute. So I'm very curious to see what their proposal is, but when I get a copy of that, I'll certainly share it with the Ag Commission so that you all can take a look on, weigh in on kind of the merits of a proposal like that.
Yeah, and part of that conversation was incentivizing the buyers. So our program is really focused on production, and then Senator Simpson has really been thinking about food industry incentives as well.
Yeah. And with a lack of funding in the state budget this year, they may just try to simply put a definition in the statute. And again, that has potential positives and negatives to it. So again, depending on what their proposal is, be interested in all of your feedback on that.
Catherine? Yes, this conversation about what is regenerative has been going on really nationwide and probably globally. I'm working on a couple of the climate smart commodity projects, and we are working on, this exact issue. How do we define it? And one of the groups has actually developed a spreadsheet showing what the metrics are for all the certification organizations, which might be handy as we move into this discussion, because that gives us sort of a baseline of what people are already doing to say what's regenerative. And I'm happy to share that when I get permission from the group that I work with.
That'd be great, Catherine. Thank you. I don't see any more hands. So thank you all. Clearly, we're going to be leaning on you all and a lot of others for this conversation. So on Next Gen, I was mentioning our Ag Workforce Development Program is gearing up for 2025 interns. So while the business side of the application is closed, the intern side is opening December 10th. So if you all know anybody excited about dipping their toe in the water and getting paid experience on a farmer ranch, send them our way. Ag Workforce Development Program. It's under the Markets division, so you can find that under the Markets tab on our website. And those applications will stay open all next year, and that's in large part because every operation might have a different intern timeline. So we want to make sure if you're applying in March, you can still get in to an internship if there's one available. And then number 4 for our big strategies, advancing animal health and welfare, in particular, standing up our non-lethal wolf reintroduction program. A couple things I want to mention before I dig into that. This past legislative session, we created our 9th programmatic division, the Division of Animal Welfare. We have since stood that up officially, hired our division director, who I think you all have met. And we are rocking and rolling with the new division. It's been really fantastic having PACFA, our Pet Animal Care Facilities Act program, and BAP, Bureau of Animal Protection, under one umbrella. They're continuing all of their regulatory duties and also now expanding really in the education and outreach front. So we hired an outreach and education specialist for Division of Animal Welfare, and Joe Stafford, our division director, is overseeing all of this work and also getting out into the field to make sure our livestock community, animal welfare partners, DAs, local law enforcement all know who he is and what we're doing. So that's been a really great addition, division-wide and staff-wide, to our team. Now on the non-lethal program side, it's been almost exactly a year that CDA has been actively engaged on wolf reintroduction. Now, since the ballot measure passed in 2020, we have been at the table. Of course, as I'm an ex officio member of Parks and Wildlife, we had staff, mainly Wayne East and Les Owen, who were part of the working groups leading up to the finalization of the management plan. And now that we have wolves on the ground, our role has shifted almost 100% on supporting our livestock communities in adapting and coexistence. So we are standing up alongside CPW. It's really, we're acting as one entity with these programs, and CDA is supporting however we can to do a number of things that have been rolled out and will be rolled out in the coming weeks. So we're really keenly focused on January, February. Calving, lambing starts late February. We're ready in a whole new way than this past year to support our livestock communities. What that looks like is, number 1, we're hosting workshops all across the Western Slope. And these serve a number of purposes. 1, education for the livestock communities who are in or might be in wolf country. So that's why we're targeting the Western Slope right now. The workshops also are a way to understand the different roles of CPW and CDA. Since we are so new to this, we want to make sure folks understand CPW is still who you call when you have a depredation or any sort of concern around conflict with your cattle, your livestock. If you call CDA, we hope to make it seamless to get that information back to Parks and Wildlife. But Parks and Wildlife remains the lead agency for this work. So we are helping communicate that. In addition, one of the key strategies right now for producers in wolf country are site assessments. So working with Parks and Wildlife staff and probably a few of ours to really look at the whole landscape you manage, your home place, your permitted ground, where are your risks for conflict, and what tools does the state have, do private entities have, can you have as a producer to mitigate and minimize those risks. So we're actually getting a lot of folks who are coming through the workshops into the site assessment with CPW. So that's really key, because then we can start saying, okay, we think a range rider would work great here. Here's a range riding support. You know, I'll talk about that in a second. Fladry would be great on your calving ground this period of time. We'll help you set up the fladry, make sure you know how to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So range riding, one of our biggest and most important tools here in Colorado. This last year, you'll recall, we were able to very quickly turn around dollars to support Middle Park in their depredation issues they were having. And that was a 2-week turnaround time. We just need bodies on the ground. Hayes wolves have a human presence. Now we have built and will be training a much more nuanced range riding program that's focused first on what do we do when it's calving and lambing season. You're at home, you're not on the range, but you still need deterrence for conflict. So we'll move through that time, and we're working on finalizing our training. We'll get folks, both state staff and contractors, into the training program December, January, and early February. So they will be ready to go come calving and lambing time. And we'll do that training again specifically for that early season and more home place needs. And then come kind of early mid-spring, we'll work on the actual range training, which is much different when you're out on permanent ground, cattle are dispersed, and you're out on a much bigger landscape, different season, and different challenges. So our training, that second phase, will be adapted to that. We have just hired our final 2 positions. So CDA's total staff capacity for this is really just over 3 FTE, full-time employees. So Wayne East is our ag and wildlife liaison. He's overseeing all this work, but he has a lot of other work to oversee. Wild horses, he does all of our fish related work for our fish farms here, for aquaculture, a lot of other work that he's engaged in. Dustin Shiflett is our non-lethal program manager. He's based out in Colburn on the western slope. And then we've just hired 2 folks to be in the field, to be deployed, whether as range riders or more than likely spending a lot of their time training others in how to do this work. But they will be equipped with trucks, trailers, ATVs. We're working on how you procure horses through the state system. We want them to be ready to be on the range alongside our producers to be able to implement these practices. And the folks joining us, we've got great 2 people coming on from Southwest, from Bayfield. They'll be focused in the Southwest, but able to come up to the Northwest wherever we might have activity. And then as well as Northwest Colorado, we'll have somebody based. So really excited for you all to hopefully meet those folks. Jesse Lassiter and Shelby are their names, and we will make sure that you get introduced to them because they'll be spending a lot of time with producers all around the state, not just Western Slope. I'll pause there. Any questions on our Big 4 initiatives or anything I just discussed? Okay, a few more updates, right? If we are still on track, we're good.
Sorry, 1 second, real quick note. Elena, I am so glad you have your child with you. Is there a way that you could maybe be slightly farther away from the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And if it doesn't work, it's totally tolerable. But it is it's as if they're in the front row.
I don't know where the microphone is, to be honest.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, you can sit back here for a bit.
Thanks, Harrison. Super. Okay, thanks, you guys. All right, some other updates from the department. Our emergency response team could not be more grateful to have now our 2 and final positions for emergency response. So Dan Frazen, who I think you've all met, is our emergency response manager. And we've just hired a gentleman by the name of Jerry Casebolt, who is fulfilling that second emergency response position. And he's down in Southern Colorado. So the storm that many of you have just been digging out from or have neighbors who have been, CDA was actually able to not only be part of the State Emergency Operations Center response, so coordinating with public safety and CDOT and Homeland Security, but Jerry was actually at the local Office of Emergency Management, EOC, down in Los Animas County. So we had boots on the ground. We were getting calls from county commissioners, state representatives, members of Congress. So information was flowing through the county, through the state, through different departments. And because of that staff capacity, we were able to make sure that producers' needs were getting where they needed to be. And what that looked like was I would get a call from a county commissioner saying, this producer can't get to their cattle and we need help plowing them out or getting feed and water. I would send that to Dan. Dan would route that through the Emergency Operations Center, but also get it back to the county, which is where the bulk of the work happens. The same is true, but in a different direction for loss assessments, which is with the phase we're in now, the recovery phase. Farm Services Agency is the agency that does this work, not CDA. We get a lot of phone calls of, we had death loss, or we had to put in this much extra hay. Are there programs for us? Farm Services Agency is where we send everyone, but we can help make sure that they're getting, they're actually getting feedback and getting those right connections from FSA. So we've been doing a lot of that as well. So that's just to say, in an emergent event, natural disaster, we can be a resource for the ag community in ways we haven't been able to be. Yet we are still rarely the lead agency. And so getting to know your local FSA and your local county emergency manager are really key, both for the commission and also producers you speak with. But just know that Dan and Jerry are here to be able to help manage that communication flow in the event of an emergency as well. We've got 2 key openings on our staff that I'm hoping you all could help with. They're both veterinary positions. We know how hard it is to find vets these days. But Dr. Morgan McCarty will be moving on just in a couple weeks from her role as assistant state veterinarian. We've been so grateful to have Dr. McCarty on board, and we'll be posting. I think that job is posted right now, and we can send that in a follow-up. And then Dr. Claire Vaden, who was our Bureau of Animal Protection veterinarian, is moving on as well. She's been a fantastic member of the team, and that position will be posted, I think, very soon. So if you know great veterinarians who would love to work for CDA, please send them our way. On the new hire front, I think you all know we have a fantastic new general manager of the state fair, Andrea Wiesenmeyer. Andrea joined us from Idaho. She spent 2 weeks kind of going back and forth, and then at the end of October moved to Pueblo. So she is officially here full time and just hit the ground running like so many folks at CDA. So very excited for you all to get to know Andrea, and we have a lot brewing for the fair, especially 2026 as we head into the 150th anniversary of statehood. High path avian influenza, no major updates other than right now, all our dairy herds are quarantine free. So when we had in July and August, the spillover events from dairy to poultry, we had human cases, we had a really intense July, August response. Dr. Baldwin was very clear-minded on making testing in dairy herds a requirement, basically in the milk, not in the cattle. We were the first and still the only state to do that, and we continue to lead the pack in response. And I say that to toot our horn a little bit, but it's really proven that Dr. Baldwin's timing and decisiveness have been critical to getting us out of quarantine status while states all around us are sinking into an outbreak. That does not mean we might not be back in one, but it means we know so much more about our disease status in our herds. And that has been also a testament to great partnership with both the poultry and dairy industries. Dr. Baldwin is running a weekly joint industry working group. And it was very interesting at the beginning to have that, and critical because dairy is so new to have high path avian influenza that, the 2 industries didn't necessarily know the impact they could have on each other. So when dairy was spilling back over into poultry, which we knew from genomic sequencing, and we brought those groups together, dairy does not want to be, they don't want to have that impact on the poultry industry. So they actually also gave us the backing to be aggressive in our testing and our regulatory action. So that's, again, we're never overconfident. We did just have a backyard flock. So this is a long ongoing response. But just a fantastic team. And Cindy is here too with conservation. Cindy was actually volunteered as a member of our high path task force. So she took some time out of her conservation work to help Dr. Baldwin on high path response. And we had a number of folks across the agency do that. So just a testament to our team stepping up on when we need them. Potatoes, want to mention potatoes real quick, and Jeff, hoping you can jump in. It's a bit longer update this morning. So
We need it.
on potatoes, we are going to be seeing a rule at the turn of the year that we had contemplated bringing to you for this meeting. And it's in relation to a piece of legislation that was passed last year. And it's really focused on helping bring down the viral load of PBY virus in the San Luis Valley specifically. The legislation made minor but important tweaks to testing, and we felt it was important to initiate a rulemaking to make sure that the public, the growers, the producers understood how CDA would be interpreting that statute. We've been working with Senator Simpson, who was the bill sponsor and the lead for that bill. And upon conversations with the senator, we have agreed to push that back, push the rule back to bring to the commission by a couple months for a couple of reasons. One, want to make sure that the senator understands why we initiated rulemaking. It was not simply because of the legislation. It was because we'll be doing some new things and we want to make sure the public is clear. So upon his request, I was happy to delay, worked a lot with Jeff on this as well, making sure that the folks who participated in our rulemaking hearings, submitted comments, know that we are respecting that process. The rulemaking process remains open, but we could give it a little bit more time to make sure that the folks who have some heartburn still get comfortable or at least understand where we're at. There's also some concerns about commissioners' authority to set standards for viral load, which really hasn't changed. It's just we addressed it through the rulemaking. So we also wanted to make time to make sure folks felt comfortable with my authority, which will always lean on the expertise of CSU and the producers in the Valley. So Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, there's usually the only one thing that gets the community out, and that's water. But seed potatoes has been that other thing that's really drawn a lot of input from the community on this topic. I've spent a lot of time talking with people from the industry, both seed-related growers and commercial-related growers, and the vast majority of them are in favor of this new legislation and agree with the end effect, but just have concerns of kind of how we got there as a in the process that got there. So I really think that this pause button and moving this decision and this rule making into the first of the year will really help people understand it a little bit more and get behind it. So, but yeah, Kate did a great job of putting into words what the industry feels and what's going on there. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. And by January, I'll work with Jeff and Senator Simpson to make sure we're bringing you a rule that has good support, and that you're not stepping into something unknown. So that was part of it too, making sure you all are prepared for that. So thanks, Jeff, for your help.
Thank you.
On another, CDA response item, E. coli. You all have probably seen now we've had 2 E. coli outbreaks. The first was traced back to onions, not Colorado onions, but aggregated in a Colorado facility. And then this most recent one, organic carrots, again, not Colorado carrots, but have impacted Colorado consumers. Essentially, CDA's role, again, we're a supporting agency, but our labs, especially for the McDonald's outbreak, we did all the testing in the beef and the onions and supported the traceback work that CDPHE and the federal government were doing to source the origin of that outbreak. So we're very happy to be able to do that on the consumer protection side. And we'll continue doing that for any other food safety related issue that we're called upon to support. I just have a few more updates. Anything on sort of emergency response or? Okay, great. So 150, 250, I've been mentioning this for many months, 2026, 150th anniversary of Colorado statehood, 250th anniversary of the United States of America. There will be lots of events going on across Colorado. One thing that we are doing, and I wanted to bring this as an example, we're working with History Colorado on creating a coffee table book. This is an example that actually features probably a lot of folks you all know, including George, one of our regional assistant commissioners. I'll pass it around. This is an example of what we want to create to showcase a version of Colorado ag history and showcase our production, a number of our producers and families across the state. So we are right now at kind of the very early phase of research and writing with History Colorado. Something like this is our hopeful outcome for that project. It will include oral histories, so we'll be able to have oral histories online, include them in the book in written form. And then for the families and individuals we engage with, my vision is that we are also taking portraits and then sending those high-res, beautiful portraits back to the family as part of the project, not to mention the book and other things going on. So the book is one event. State Fair is going to be having lots of events going on. And then we're also going to be doing a lot of outreach, travel events around the state as well. So just wanted to bring this as an example of where our mind is at. We have a steering committee at CDA. Tiffany Brigner in Labs is overseeing the project for us. And this is just another invitation to you all to join us in kind of thinking through what this project could look like, and especially how it can be meaningful to you all and your communities. This is really, in the end, CDA is just to the side of this project. What's in the center of this project are our ag communities. So the goal is that we're helping create something that you all and your families and communities will feel proud of, and that you'll want to share this for your holiday gifts and birthday gifts and keep it on your coffee table. So lots more to come there. We'll be doing a much more public rollout on our effort in 2025. So we just wanted to make sure we had the groundwork going and the game plan before we do that broader public rollout. Okay. And last few items, just recent events. I want to say thanks to Riley for driving a bunch of us around his property last week. We had Parks and Wildlife Commission in Lamar. And as always, the May family were such gracious hosts for 60 strangers and friends from across the state. We actually got to go out to their property and help reintroduce black-footed ferrets, which was my second time and their fourth season doing that work. But just really special seeing the conservation and production that the Mays are able to do. Riley, anything you want to share from last week?
Do you want me to just give my update? That's what I was going to lead with.
Okay, yeah.
Is that good?
Works for me. And then I just have a few things. Why don't I'll just finish out and then I can pass it over.
I'll stay.
So that was fantastic. And then a couple weeks ago, we had Colorado Uncorked, which is our wine board annual event. Great time at History Colorado. 14 Colorado wines competed for the Governor's Cup, and we had lots of local chefs and local food paired with those wines. So really neat time to showcase that part of ag as well. Upcoming, we have this week is our second annual turkey pardon at the Governor's Mansion. Luckily Bethany is our resident turkey expert, having been grand champ growing up.
Yes, and stock, what was it, showmanship.
There we
I
go.
can look those turkeys real good.
So you just never know where like our staff's expertise is going to come into play. It's also Farmers Union Convention, Farm Bureau Convention this week, and then Colorado Counties Inc. has their annual meeting in a couple of weeks. So a lot of our staff will be out and about. And then I do just want to mention for Ag Commission, since we've got this meeting and one short meeting left this year, and happy to get into this later. I just want to mention it now. We've really been evaluating kind of our workload and the load for you all to do a meeting every month. And so we are actually cutting our meetings down by half next year. We're still going to be out in the field. We'll still be here, but we're going to do 6 instead of 12 in hopes that we'll add more value to your time when you are in person. We are always available in between meetings. But hopefully that helps just kind of alleviate some of the pressure on every single month cadence. I also want to mention that I'm very grateful to our Spanish language interpreters. They've been with us, I think, at least since March. And this was a year to see kind of, we want to expand our outreach to Spanish language communities. So that's key. And we also want to expand access, but want to make sure that our services are being utilized. So we're going to work with our interpreters as well as our team to see what we do for 2025. We may continue, but we may also look at other ways to reach Spanish-speaking communities, including through our outreach events, and look at doing some Spanish language outreach events in particular. These meetings are great, but it might be hard if you've never engaged with the department to see where you fit in. And what Bethany's been doing is, and Aldo and a lot of folks on our team, is how do you engage with the department? Who are we? Why does it matter to know about our services? And if we can offer that in Spanish and reach more people, that's something we're looking at. So just know that those are some of the changes underway. And Colleen, that's the end of my report. If I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Any questions? Great. A lot of things going on, as always. Jordan, legislative policy and budget updates, please.
Good to see you all of you. Before I dive into budget updates, I want to introduce a new staff member. Emily Paul is sitting over in the corner over there, is our new federal affairs specialist. She has a degree in Western Ranch Management from CSU and comes to us from the Mountain Area Land Trust. Her position is actually filling a spot that was previously the federal lands position that was housing conservation. This position's moved into the commissioner's office, and we've kind of broadened the scope of the position to give us a little bit more capacity to focus on tracking federal funding opportunities, as well as agency action items and legislation beyond just ag and land issues as well. So really happy to have her on board and have a little bit more capacity in there. So on November 1st, the governor issued his proposed budget for next fiscal year, which starts next July. This next year, we're anticipating somewhere around $1 billion budget shortfall. And this doesn't actually mean that the overall budget is decreasing. It's actually increasing. It's just increasing at a slower rate than it has been over the past few years. And so that $1 billion shortfall is really the result of increased caseloads and required spending, such as Medicaid, as well as lower inflation rates, which is good for everybody's individual pocketbooks, but that lowers the tabor caps. And so that lowers the overall total amount of spending that the state has available. So kind of those things combined result in this essentially $1 billion shortfall that the state has to fill. And so there's kind of, with that backdrop, every state agency was asked to kind of put forward a budget proposal that will help fill that gap. And so any increases in spending for this next year had to be matched with offset cuts in spending as well. So for this year, CDA has 4 proposed changes to our budget. The first 2 are increases. The third one is a decrease, and the fourth one is a budget neutral. So the first request that we have that we're putting forward is for funding to support our animal disease traceability programs. So a lot of our funding comes from the USDA for those programs through cooperative agreements. However, the funding we get through the cooperative agreements hasn't been increasing, and in some cases it's actually decreasing, while our expenses are increasing. So staff costs increase, operational expenses are increasing, and so we're having a big kind of crunch in the budget area there, which is very crucial at the moment, as Commissioner Greenberg gave a lot of updates on iPad AI and other things that we're following. So for that program, we're requesting an increase of about $140,000 a year to help fund half of one of our existing veterinarians in the program, as well as provide some additional operational budgets. Again, just to be able to maintain kind of our current levels. Our second request is actually for about $300,000 in 2 FTE for our soil health program. Up to this point, all of the funding for our soil health program has either been through federal grants, foundation grants, or one-time state funding. And so we're really trying to kind of build into our long-term budget ongoing stable funding for the soil health program. So that's, again, about an increase in $300,000 for that program in 2 FTE, which we anticipate would be, staff that are currently hired on through federal grants that would continue on in the future. So our third request is our cut in order to be able to kind of fund those first 2 things. And for this one, we're proposing a cut of $450,000 in general fund to the state fair. In addition to that, we are proposing a cash fund spending authority increase of $450,000. So the state fair has several $1 million in a reserve, kind of a reserve account. So in cash on hand that they don't have authority to spend at the moment. And so with this request, again, we're going to be kind of reducing the general fund, so the tax dollars they get, but allowing them to spend more of their cash funds that they have, so ticket sales, things like that. So this will kind of alleviate some of the pressure on the state general fund while allowing the state fair to maintain a kind of a flat operational budget. So really minimal impacts there. Harrison?
Jordan, how does that cash fund look year to year? Is it steadily growing? Is it been stable for a million years? What's its how does it look?
Yeah, it's been pretty stable for quite a long time. We've had several $1 million in that account that we haven't been able to spend pretty much the entire time that I've been here at CDA. So we did projections on their budget, and we're confident that the state fair can handle this switch, for the foreseeable future. So we projected out, 4 or 5 years. Hopefully, budget situation will change, but we also have some potential contingencies with Ag Management Fund if there is, a change in the financial position of the state fair.
Okay. And is that money, is that cash fund gaining interest? Is it just sitting there?
It is gaining interest, but again, as of now, we don't have authority to spend the money. So it just sits there and is kind of a rainy day fund. And so this will, again, allow us to start spending down that fund in lieu of general fund.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
And I'll just mention on that point, I'm 6 years in, and it's still confusing to me that you can't spend money that you've earned in some of your funds, but spending authority is a term of art in the state level. It's very different from private sector, which you all live every day. So we have to have the cash and we have to have the authority to spend it. Those different things.
And then the last request we have is, again, it's budget neutral, but it's to realign our the long bill budget. So long bill is the state budget bill with kind of how the agency is actually structured. So if you look at the long bill, every time every year when we show you that graph of, here's what each division is allocated there, it doesn't actually match how we're structured administratively with the department. So we're asking the JPC this year to restructure how they present our budget to match the agency. Really, the main goal of this is increased transparency so that when people look at the state budget, they can see how much funding is allocated to each division within the department. So those are the 4 requests that we submitted this year. I will actually be leaving this meeting right after I'm done giving the update to head down to the Capitol. It's at 11 o'clock today. The Joint Budget Committee staff is going to be presenting our budget request to the committee. So in addition to kind of what we have proposed this year, JBC staff has been directed by the committee to identify additional cuts for every single agency. We're anticipating that they will talk about those today at 11. So kind of eager to see what they're proposing in terms of additional cuts to CDA for next year. Based upon conversations that we've had, we are anticipating that the staff will propose to the committee potential cuts to some of the increased funding we've gotten over the past couple of years, specifically around renewables and climate funding and some of our next gen work. And so, again, kind of eager to see what those proposals are, but we'll likely be in a situation this year where we're really going to have to be defending a lot of the work that we've put in over the past, 4 or 5 years in a lot of these programs. That's the end of my update today.
Okay, great. Any questions for Jordan?
So Jordan, with that, just thinking outside a little, so evidently their priorities may be a little different than some of ours, like you say, cutting some of our programs. So maybe some of ours are higher ranking within our system, but Joint Budget Committee may have a different, can't think of the word there, but different opinion on priorities, I guess. It's probably why they would suggest cutting those areas.
Well, and that's just the conversations we have with the staff. So it's not necessarily the committee members, but that's where, again, kind of depending what the staff proposes, we're going to be advocating with the committee members and, reaching out to associations and others to advocate for those programs. And, and the JBC has a really tough job. I mean, they have to find $1 billion in the state budget to cut, and it's not fun. But, looking at our budget, so JBC staff has been asked to find or propose cuts of 5% to each agency in general fund money. That's about $1 million to CDA's budget that they'd be looking to cut. And so that, part of the story is that's a lot of money for us and our agency and the work that we're trying to do. $1 million out of $1 billion shortfall, that's not solving the state budget issue there. And so, that's part of the conversations that we're going to be having with them is, hey, look at the impact that these dollars are having versus, what you're going to get by cutting it.
And they earmark those specifically. They will come back to you saying, these are the areas that we think.
Well,
Should
be cut.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so they specifically, the questions have been around grant funded programs. So I think I've mentioned previously some of the budget conversations, but our priorities when we're looking at budget and advocating, are maintaining core program functions and maintaining our staff and really making sure that our staff feel secure through these kind of challenging conversations. So that's going to really continue to be the focus. And that's with our proposed budget, you can see that in there where we're trying to continue to invest in areas where we really need to, while minimizing the impacts of potential cuts. And so that's going to be our focus in working with the JBC and their staff on any other potential cuts they might be looking at.
Can they cut a line item to line item there too? Like they say suggested cuts, or we just have a certain amount of dollars and then we can adjust our priorities as well too. With the money we do that, or CDA, I should say.
They could kind of do either way, but typically what they'll likely do is cut to specific programs. So for example, the agrivoltaics grant program, we currently have $500,000 a year. They might in the budget say you now get $200,000 a year instead of $500,000. So likely it'll be that specific.
They could be that specific.
Monday? Yeah. Any questions? Great. Thank you, Jordan. All right. We're going to move on to operations update, and Madison is presenting for us today.
Yes, thank you. Okay, first, on October 22nd and 23rd, senior management had a staff retreat in Salida, and our big topics of discussion were onboarding for new staff members, but also safety. Safety for our field staff, safety for our staff members here in Broomfield and Monte Vista, and in Palisade and just around the state. And so with our focus on safety in our conversations, we're going to be discussing areas for employee engagement on safety, brainstorming areas that we can improve safety, and continuing to refine this with staff. So all of this came out of an employee engagement survey that was completed earlier in the year, around March or April. And some of the responses that we got from our different divisions were not necessarily concerns for safety, but questions around safety. And so that really sparked the conversations that we were able to have, and we're excited to be able to implement some learning opportunities with our staff here. Specifically, Dan Frazen is going to be hosting a number of classes and courses with our HR folks, but also having the conversations with staff around what does safety mean for you and how can we make you feel more safe as an employee at CDA. The other focus was on onboarding. And whenever we talk about onboarding, a lot of folks say, well, there's the onboarding that you do that's very tactical. Here's a computer, here's a cell phone. But then there's the cultural onboarding that comes after that. And that's what we want to focus on as an organization. And so looking at, can we come up with a toolkit that our different divisions can use to really help staff get up to speed on what does it mean to be a state employee? What does it mean to be an employee of the Department of Agriculture? What does it mean to be an employee of ICS? And also, what does it mean to work at your very specific program level? So understanding, right, we are operating in all of these different spaces, and what does that mean whenever we onboard folks? And so we're really looking forward to building that out over the next year and being able to provide our divisions and staff with a toolkit, something that they can use to help folks understand what are the cultural areas that we work in and how can we work better as an organization. It was a really good conversation with everyone. Next is, I'm trying not, I wrote down, I was like, okay, Kate covered this one, Kate covered this one. Which one should I cover now? And so I think it's really looking at some new grant opportunities that we had. And so I know that we had discussed the Ag Workforce Development Scholarships for Internships, but also there's the Equine Welfare Assistance Grant to provide $200,000 to advance animal welfare. There's the Noxious Weeds Grant that is currently up until December 16th, where we will issue $700 to organizations, including counties, municipalities, conservation districts, nonprofit organizations, and organized private entities, such as road show associations and homeowners associations, to address and reduce noxious weeds. Those two opportunities coming up as well. And then for my quick little update is some upcoming rulemaking. And so just to have this on everyone's register is in the first 2 months of the new year, so December, January, February, we're going to be discussing a noxious weed rule, the Small Business Recovery Resiliency Tax Credit rule updates, and as Kate had mentioned, the seed potato rule. Later in the spring, we're going to be bringing to you another produce safety rule, much like we're revisiting today, and a brand new Conservation Ag Tax Credit rule. So we have quite a bit of rulemaking that's going to be happening in the first few months of the year, and we're excited to bring that all to you. Anyone has any questions?
What's the overall safety record of the CDA employees, and has there been quite a few accidents, or is it just a culture of keeping everybody safe?
A culture of keeping everybody safe. And so with human resources, we were able to get a download of what have been claims against workers' comp insurance for the organization over the last number of years. And what we would see is stepped in a ditch, right? Twisted an ankle, or stepped out of a golf cart and hit a curb, right? So these are much smaller things. However, it really is that focus on, even before any of that happens, how can we make sure that staff, right, feel empowered to stay safe throughout, with a big focus on our folks in the field, right? So whenever we got the responses, it wasn't so much from folks here in Bloomfield or in Palisade or Mont Vista, but our folks who were out working, who were subject to conditions of Colorado, right? And whatever those might be. So that's mostly what it was.
Okay.
But the numbers, I think we looked at 5 years of data, and we had, I should look at these numbers, but we had very few over 5 years, very, very few. So that's where we were, the numbers, didn't indicate that we had an issue. We just need to make sure we're being very conscientious of it.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, ag is kind of inherently a dangerous industry, and especially if you're a brand inspector or a potato inspector of some kind or another, there can be hazards. So keeping that cultural safety is not only good for the CDA, but good for the people that they're serving as well.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Madison.
Thank you.
We're going to go into Regional Assistant Commission updates, and we're going to hear from Riley about what happened out at the May Farm.
All right. So, yeah, as Kate mentioned, Thursday, I attended the Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting there. It was in Lamar, so it was extremely easy. Had to get work done the day before, but I was able to be there. And then after the meeting, we heard a lot of good public comment. I missed Friday because I was in another meeting. But so after the Parks and Wildlife Commission, we did have a great opportunity, and we didn't schedule it this way. It just happened to work out that was the same day that we were able to release 15 more black-footed ferrets onto the ranch. So it's extremely exciting to have a successful black-footed ferret reintroduction program. Back earlier this spring, we actually documented 3 live kits on the ranch, which is pretty much never been done from a reintroduction program. So everyone involved, the biologists and people who really know what's going on were ecstatic. They were very happy about that. It's encouraging to us too, because the black-footed ferrets, you let them out of the cage, they go in the hole, sometimes they come back out, and then you never see them again. And you don't know if they're alive or dead. It's like, what is the analogy of the cat in the box? Is it alive or dead? Nobody knows till you open it. Anyways, we know they're alive now and they're doing well. The habitat's growing, which is an eyesore because their habitat is prairie dog colonies, and nobody really likes prairie dogs, but they definitely have their purpose, and they create their keystone species. They create the habitat for many different species. So it's not pleasant, but we do actually manage the ranch for prairie dogs, which means we are dusting against sylvatic plague and vaccinating, dropping pellets, which is opposite of any rancher that ever seen a prairie dog, and it's not because we love them necessarily, but they are important and they have a purpose. So in order to reintroduce the ferrets, that's what we have to do. So being able to share that story with the Parks and Wildlife Commission and a huge group of people, from every walk of life is so valuable to see that production agriculture is not just something that is taken from land all the time, but we are out there promoting, I don't know what I want to say, the codependency, I guess, with livestock and with the habitat, everything that we have, we're working together to protect that. Then Friday, I attended the Low Proco workshop in La Junta, and the main purpose there is to improve school meals with locally grown produce, beef, vegetables, whatever. We're trying to bring partners, producers, and consumers, local retailers, kind of ties into the locally, like the community food access program. We're working with them to bring it in, and just propagating those relationships more than anything as CDA is very important to bring everyone together. And that kind of goes what I've been wanting to do anyways, just more local education on food production. Okay. I also had a meeting with Dan Frazen and Jerry Case, both the emergency response team, and just looking forward to working with them on any communication in the future, if it's an emergency or just some outreach, something we need to do. Jerry's kind of down in my region and friends and family of each other a little bit. It's kind of funny how that goes. Didn't even know him before that. So looking forward to bolstering those relationships more and being ready for any emergency that arises. Hopefully I can help them as well. I started working with Amanda Laban on the new marketing opportunities. No breakout developments there yet, but we're just continually working together to try to help producers be able to be more financially stable with different marketing and maybe possibly different crops. Yesterday I was on a Zoom call with Cindy as well, working with the National Star Committee. I guess, I don't know, is it a committee?
It's Science Committee for the Range.
Yeah. So a committee that is looking to propagate the STAR program nationally on grazing land specifically this time. So I'm looking forward to more work on that. And then tomorrow I have a Sabria, I don't know how they say their acronym, but it's like 9 counties kind of in the southeast region, county commissioners and different representatives from each one that come together and kind of work towards the economic prosperity and the goals of the region. This will be my first meeting. They just asked me to come and represent CDA and be a part of the discussion. So I don't know what's going to be said there, what's going to be expected of me, other than I'm going, and I hope to do a good job to represent you guys and be able to bring something back at the next meeting from that. So that kind of is all my immediate updates. My slow burn goal is like, I really want to get something going in some rural areas, small communities, Lamar, any of the other surrounding areas. I'd like to get some food education courses going, like elementary schools or a community garden, something like that. So any of my connections I meet, I mentioned that, and I'm trying to make some connections in my spare time to do that. So it's slow, but that's something I'm continually working on. If anybody wants to partner with me or has some suggestions, I'm slowly keeping that in mind. That's all I have for updates, though. Thank you.
That's great.
And also one more thing. I've been asking, or the whole time in my career here, I've been saying, I don't really know what to do. I feel like I need to kind of guide me to tell me what to do. Well, these last 2 weeks, I feel like that's open. I kind of have an idea where I'm going.
Good. You've been baptized. Huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, great. Thank you, Riley. Let's see. Nick, online, would you like to share with us your world?
Morning, everybody. So what's been happening where I live? We recently hosted the Women in Agriculture conference. It was a big hit. We had over 70 plus women attend, so it was great for networking. It brought all different size operations and women's roles in ag together. It also allowed for me to find a new first-gen farmer that has bought 9 acres out here in Pueblo County and kind of tie her into the loop and get her juiced up and excited about all the things that we have going down here. And she's also working for me now. So that was a plus for myself as well. A lot of the local agricultural groups are going about the reorganizations for their committees and their boards. And so I'd highly encourage everyone everywhere to reach out to any of our local agricultural groups. And if you have the time, and even if you're a community member and can devote once a month for a couple of hours to participate in these organizations, I'd highly recommend you reaching out to them because I know that they could use your support. I've sat on quite a bit of grant phone calling, and not just for like the local state level, but some of the grants that are coming out from the federal level, as well as across the country from independent partners, and have been plugging, of course, all the things to Colorado producers that might be on the call that's coming out of the CDA. Right now, we're also in the midst of planning the Colorado Regional Summits. And so there's a bunch of working groups going on around that. Pueblo County will be covering, or the Lower Arkansas, I should say, will be covering Pueblo County, Otero, and Crowley County. Two of the main topics I think that they're going to focus on is ag protection through municipal and community participation programming and what that looks like to get everyone engaged and involved, not just from the farmers and producers aspect, but everyone that lives and resides in the area. And then we're going to try and host 2 dinners. One will be catered to larger agricultural producers, and the second one to more of the local small ag producers. And we've got a great list of questions, and we're hoping to wine and dine them with some dinner and make it more of a private affair so people can open up to us and let us know what their needs and wants are, the things that they have concerns about. And I'm really excited for that. As on a personal note, we hosted a farm to table at our home through our members. And I really enjoy this piece because it's my time to have community education, not only with like the consumers that purchase from me, but I get to talk to them about all the things that I participate in and what we're doing on at the state level. It's a nice way to open up the farm and really get engagement from all different types of people. Our local extension office agent girls, I always hands down to them. They do a great job. But Beth Hayes hosted Grasshoppers webinar that I think brought in almost 200 people all across the state and even outside of the state. It was very informative. It's still live, and you can receive the handouts for that. And that had to do with everything from home gardeners to like large scale 20,000 plus operations, acre operations. And it was really, really great. They had a lot of enjoyable speakers on there. And then also Chrissy Bartolo, we host another one on weeds tomorrow here locally. I had my first Colorado Ag in the Classroom board meeting, sitting in an advisory role on there. And what a great group of people. I didn't realize how many were so involved in that across the state. This year's book, of course, is Cattle, Corn, and Courage. And I think that that really plays into the big part of what ag is here in Colorado, which is our ranching community. And so I highly encourage everyone to get their school districts and partners on board with this programming. A big topic discussed there too was also kind of broadening the education piece, not just with the middle school, but expanding it through that 9th to 12th K, so that we can really start to penetrate some of those older kids that could be new leaders in agriculture and possibly want jobs in agriculture, not always farming. Soil San Cristo hosted their third quarter awards and gave out almost close to $20,000 to two producers on a 0% interest loan. I just wanted to note that Soil has 3 different programs here in the state in 3 different regions. And so I highly encourage consumers and farmers and ranchers to help promote them and also use their resources. I spent last week in Washington on the Hill. 3 of the main things that I addressed while I was there was Water Protections Navigation Act, the Strengthening Wildfire Resilience Through Satellites Act, and then PFAS, our forever chemicals. And I think the biggest point there was that a lot of the voices from our ag community really wanted to just make sure that there's protection against or protection for farmers as these acts move into fruition and how they're laid out. So that way we're being protected. The highlight of that trip is that I met with the staff counselors of the Ag and Fisheries for the Embassy of Canada. And that was the highlight, I think, in this last month and a half since our last meeting, just to talk about exports and disease traceability and really how connected we are across and are on that border, and looking for support too, just to see where we stand as a state that are coming out of the federal government. I also last Friday signed my hiring contract as the new general manager for Valley Roots Food Hub. This is very exciting for me because we've been a part of working with them for most of our agricultural career. And a lot of the work out of the last 2 years through the LoPro cohort for Nourish Colorado is going to need aggregation. And I love local food. And so I'm hoping to make a lot of this happen in the southeast corner of the state with our partners through the institutions and our farmers. Let's see. When we talk, I know there's a lot of talk too about what went on with the wildfires and the snow, and the Larimer County Farmers Alliance, which is a portion of Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, has started an Ag Assist Fund, and they were most recently able to give out some of that money to help. And so I also want people to know that that is available for our producers across the state. The Ag Tax Credit Program, man, I can't plug that enough, and I really hope that you're getting a ton of applications for that, because it's a wonderful thing, and I honestly wish I went and bought so many things in cash this year so that I could use it. We've got a lot of good new job postings. I really want to plug in the new hire for the CDA, Jesse Lassiter, for the non-lethal program. He is a colleague and a huge advocate for agriculture, and I'm very excited that he is joining our team here at the CDA. And outside of that, I think that's it. So thank you for your time this morning.
All right, super. I know I saw Jo on here. Is she still on? There she
Yes,
is.
I am.
Here you are.
Mine's short and sweet. Right now, we're asking for you to send snow up here. We have dry spots, which is not normal. What we're doing up here, basically, I'm circling around back to some of the meetings that I went to earlier to see what some updates are going on. I just sent a review on some of the Continental Divide Gap group. The next thing I'm working with is this afternoon, I have a meeting with the Western Slope Regional Food Summit group on our plans for using that grant money. I have, as Kate so eloquently spoke about all the things that were going on with the wolves up here, this week, the rest of this week is, I had to get my notes out here, is the range riding thing that CDA is helping to sponsor in Glenwood Springs on the 20th. The 21st is in Meeker, and the 22nd is in Craig. It's a 1 day, and that's where wolf livestock risk reduction, efficiency and ease of handling, reproduction successes, all of those things that they talk about, and tactics. I will say that I went to the one in Jackson County, then came home and had a discussion and ran off all the people that don't load cattle the way I like them, and just had our family there. And we managed to load a cattle pod of 20 cull cows, 1 cow and calf, and 4 bulls in 12 minutes using some of their techniques. So it's well worth it. The non-lethal wolf reduction conflict training, which is where CDA is working with the wildlife services and playing the role that all of these different organizations play. They will be in Gunnison on the 11th of December, and they will be in Gypsum on the 12th of December. So that's what the wolf things are. As long as the wolves keep behaving themselves, we'll be okay. So I'm just doing it short and sweet, just regrouping around. The food services are going in, as Nick said, all of the organizations are redoing, the local organizations are redoing their officers and their outlook for the coming year. And I agree with her. I think that Riley, and I just have to give kudos to Riley and Nick, that what an awesome reports they did. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Joe, where did everybody go?
I don't know. It got very quiet.
I know. I don't. We're still Zooming. I wonder if it's a connection in Broomfield.
How about now, guys?
I see Nick, and I see 2 Nicks, a Harrison, a
Oh, how about
Catherine.
now? Can you hear us?
Can you hear
Now
us?
we can hear you. Now we can hear. I can hear you now.
Okay. Anyway, Joe, I'm going to be sending you some information about the Ag in the Classroom project, see if you can help distribute to get the word of mouth out to some of the schools in your area.
Oh, good. I've got that, and I've been distributing that. I also have been working with Catherine at the Ag Forum on working on next spring's thing with talks with both the state land, with the BLM, Hunter at the BLM, and Bailey with the Forest Service, looking at places, since I want to focus on public lands.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Is that Nick talking to us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I couldn't figure out where that was coming from. All right. Thank you. All right. Great. So we're at the point now for the discussion of any CDA priorities from the Ag Commission members. Any thoughts, ideas? I had one question for you, Kate, on the intern programs. Do you have specific locations for them to go be interns at? And how did you come about getting the interns or the location?
The location. So it's a 2-tier application process. Businesses apply that want to host interns.
Oh, okay.
And go through an application, and then we approve those, and those are the businesses that will be in the program. And then the second phase is the intern application. A lot of businesses have an intern they have in mind, and then the intern has to apply. But if there's not a match, we'll help match make. once we get both sets of applications in.
And is the weight of your applications balanced?
That's a good question. I know I think we've always been able to fill our businesses with interns. I'm not certain if we've had more interns than we've had businesses though, if we've had to turn anybody away. And this year we have been able to expand our funding. So I think we're at a place where we can accept everybody, at least from the business side who's come in is I think moving through, we'll see what the demand looks like from interns. So.
That's a good question, Pauline. And I'm working with, well, it's Sarah now and Joanne's moving on, but we've been talking through that a little bit. And there is a very big emphasis that we want to go directly to the companies for their application process. So the interns are not applying to CDA, but they're sending those applications because that's going to look different for every operation. But because they are open for so much longer, even if they have something filled for right now, that might fall through, or, you know, interns' plans may change. And so then they still have that ability to work directly with the operation and express interest. And maybe, I think there's been some times of kind of figuring out a different way to work with that company, even if it's not as an intern right that season. So that's the nice thing, is making that connection between the intern and the company itself, so that we're trying not to get too involved with just matchmaking, as Kate said.
Okay, great. Any comments, thoughts?
Approximately how many interns are possible there in that program?
Oh, I don't know what the number of businesses is off the top of my head that are open.
Yeah, well, I think the team is finalizing the business applications. I think historically, we've been able to put about 40 interns into internships. So we can get those actual numbers for you.
That's great.
And then part of what we're looking at the next couple of years is developing more of a leadership network. So, you know, folks who go through our internship program or get supported by our Next Gen scholarship program will have more ways to keep plugging in with the broader ag community.
Forgot to mention one thing about our parent release. Every year we've decided that every year we're able to do this, we invite the 8th grade class out from our middle school just to get them engaged, and it's always fun. I didn't get to be there with them this year because of the meeting, but it's always fun to see their interest in the certain things that they notice, or the conversations you overhear between those kids is mind opening to me. It's really, the things they say and see are surprising to me. So that's always beneficial for everybody.
You said you had over 60 people there. What kind of comments did you get from other
People are excited.
participant or spectators? Yeah.
People are excited. Yeah, the black-footed ferrets are extremely ferocious. They are killers. Their fangs are like that long, and pound for pound, they're like the most aggressive, ferocious mammal on the planet. They're impressive, and they get chattery, and they're very different. You know, they're fun to watch, and people are just mesmerized by when they actually get to see them, and the one will come out and run around, and they look like a slinky going across the ground. You know, they're very interesting. So I don't know, every type of comment you would imagine. It's mostly just excitement though. From us too. I mean, I've seen it 4 times now, and it's still exciting because it's just fun.
It's great.
Yeah, Katie, I had one thing. So the STAR program, everyone is like really excited about it and loves it. One of the questions I had was, some of the local organizations really wanted to like help farmers out, so they bought like for example, bought like a no-till drill, and there was some funds to help them pay for that, but equipment is so expensive that it just covered a percentage. So I was just wondering if like maybe, I don't know, I had some ideas, but I don't know if there anything that the STAR program would be interested in, but like maybe if like they continue to enroll in STAR, like continuing to offer that support so they can invest in like infrastructure, like the no-till drills and other equipment that they can help producers with. Because like, unfortunately, I think it was like, I forget what it was, 25,000 or something they could get towards equipment. But that's like for a no-till drill, you know, like the cheapest they could find was like 50. So it covered half the cost, but then actually somebody on the organization fronted the money personally, which I was like, oh, I don't love that, you know, for their financial security. So I was just wondering if maybe there's, I was trying to come up with some other creative funding for them, but it definitely got them through the door, but like, how do we get them like continuing to be offering that program. And I think what I was worried about, like, because they had fronted the money personally, that maybe it would make it more the incentive to like charge farmers for the service of like using the drill. And I think that they really want to keep it free. Especially it's in Costilla County, so like that community for sure definitely needs those services. So anyway, that was just one of my I guess feedback of like continuing to support these people that we're working with, and making sure that their programs can like continue and they don't have like a cutoff date because of financial strains and stuff like that. I think the same with the food access grant. So anyway,
Yeah, I'll touch on the big picture and then ask Cindy to jump in if you have anything to add too. So really important note that of what you were just mentioning, Elena, of not having this cliff after our grants are done, and we're really conscientious of that. That said, the amount of money we've had in the last 2 years, we do not expect to see again definitely in my tenure, but probably in a generation. And that's, that's true at the state level, but the bulk of our STAR funding has been federal, the 25 million Climate Smart Commodities Grant. We are, with the new federal transition and new team coming in, the climate funding has been verbally on the priority chopping block list. And so I think not just with the state budget challenges, but now with climate funding being far more uncertain at the federal level, we just have a lot more uncertainty around the future of funding. And without a farm bill, we don't know which of these federal programs are going to be solidified into federal statute, if at all. And we'll have to see what Congress does too. So I think that's a point we are keeping a very close eye on, how Congress and the next administration choose to handle climate money, because that is equipment grants, that's soil health technical assistance, that's conservation districts, that's market access and expansion, that's research, that's all this work we've been building and putting on the ground in ag communities. So that's sort of the constraints we're dealing with, but making sure that we advocate however we can. The budget request that Jordan mentioned, while it's very modest, about $350,000 to continue our soil health program, the fact that we were able to get that in the budget, the governor's budget, shows that, this administration under Governor Polis agree we need continuation of support to some degree. So that's the landscape. We'll just see where it takes us, but we're going to continue to advocate as much as we can for those resources.
Yeah.
Cindy, anything to add?
Yeah, so glad to hear that you're happy with.
Can you come a little closer to the mic? If you would?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cindy Lair and with the Conservation Services Division, and really excited to hear the feedback on the soil health program and how it works with the STAR program. Just to note, the original funding that we had and our first iteration of implementing STAR with producers had $25,000 for each conservation district or entity to spend on equipment grants, and that was a 1-to-1 match. And so we were using state stimulus money for that first go around, and fortunately it didn't have the type of constraints that we're dealing with today. Right now, we have Climate Smart Commodities funding that Commissioner Greenberg referred to, that $25 million, and we are constrained pretty tightly on being able to offer equipment grants, and that was not available. We couldn't make that available through this funding pool. I will note that we're working with a consulting firm right now and we're aggressively looking at different philanthropies, businesses, and ag corporations that would be interested in providing STAR rewards to producers that are getting a certain increase in their STAR rating and STAR score. Part of that too is we're trying to get implement dealers that might work with producers and give them a better price on an implement, or maybe a rental rate that would be a better rate for that type of no-till equipment or other types of regenerative equipment it's hard to reach for people. So we're trying to be as creative as we possibly can to get some of those dollars. And one of our top priorities is to try to, at some point, get a way to help producers with equipment purchases, because we understand that that is a large barrier. So, but as Commissioner Greenberg says, it's not getting any better out there in this world of managing for climate. So thanks for your comment, though.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's really, I know, it's such a bummer that it's so dependent on where the wind blows. Because I think that, it's just a challenge to try to make sure those programs, because I think people are really excited about it. And that enthusiasm is awesome to see. And so I'm hopeful. And we'll keep being creative. Like I told them, I was like, there's got to be something out there that we can look for that's either, maybe if there's continued programs, but I'm sure there's something out there around soil health or something that would help that organization continue to offer those services to the community. So, yeah.
And that's why we've diversified our partnership and funding portfolio to include private sector. And the STAR program actually started with a private sector grant that Cindy got. So while we know this is a peak in our funding, we don't want to be solely dependent on one source of funding to keep serving you all.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I'll let them know that, because I know that was like one of the things they said was that it really did help them get through the door, but then they still have this other continued, expense and they were very strongly like, we do not want to be charging farmers for having to use this equipment. We really want to be able to offer it like as a service for the community. So,
Catherine, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I've heard that signed government contracts, like all the climate smart commodities grants, will continue to be funding their 5-year programs. Is that what your understanding is, or do you think that money is also at jeopardy?
I think, Catherine, from what I've heard, there's more security in signed contracts and encumbered funds, money that's been obligated. It's just hard to tell exactly what the impact is going to be, so I don't want to take that for granted. But we are working to make sure that the full extent of the funds that we have received are committed and locked in as much as possible to protect those resources for Colorado. And then, of course, the longer term question of even for these one-time funds, what's the sentiment going to be in the Farm Bill negotiations? It's a separate issue, but related in terms of where Congress and the administration will go with climate funding.
Thank you.
Any other discussions on any of the priorities? Yeah.
Thanks, Colleen. And to add on that conversation, partly through Commissioner Greenberg's work, is we're approaching CWCB for funding for the soil health, since it's really one of the actions in the water plan. So we'll see that hearing is actually going to be on Thursday, where we introduce our grant to them. So we're hopeful that we'll get some fun.
And that will be for applied work on the ground for water conservation related, and much like Riley's talked about, crop switching opportunities, market access, really blending water, soil, and market.
Cool. Right. Well, I'm hopeful because it sounds like oddly, the USDA has some really cool new people on board that may be really focused on some of this. I'm hopeful, but that's really good to know, because I think that's definitely, water and soil health should be definitely talking to each other for sure. So cool, thank you. Good to know.
And we're coordinating meetings with CWCB staff and CDA staff and trying to work together more toward those common goals. And then also, if I can, another hat that I have the honor to wear is leading up our Ag Behavioral Health Group. So as a result of legislation last session, we're charged with forming an Ag Behavioral Health and Community of Practices Working Group. Commissioner Greenberg has made those appointments to that. So we have 14 people appointed to that, well represented from around the state. And our kickoff meeting for that will be on Monday, December 9th at 2:30 in the afternoon. It's virtual, so anybody can join in. All the meetings are open to the public, and we're excited to get that group going and to see how we can help rural communities with behavioral health efforts. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Others?
Yeah, well, sorry, that information about that will be on the website.
On the website?
The website.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Robert, one question about that, sort of to continue. Do you have kind of future ideas or plans, what you want to initiate in communities first?
Yeah, so the work group members are a wide variety of people, are health professionals, also people with lived experiences. So that'll be the first step, is to see what's working in their communities and understanding if we can pass those along to other communities. They're charged with meeting once a month, so it's going to move pretty fast. And then also, as a part of that legislation, is to have an annual summit to talk about what's going on in with that working group and what shortfalls and what gaps there are. So we'll be providing a report to the legislature, what the next steps could be.
Grassroots.
Yeah,
That's great.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts? All right, good discussion. So we have time for a 10-minute break. It's 10:40. We will resume at 10:50. Thank you. Nick, I see your hand is up. Are you just waving at us?
Yep, just waving. Actually, I had a question. Are you starting the meeting again,
We
Colleen?
are. Yes. So
Okay.
go ahead, please.
I was had a question for Robert if he's back in the room, and
He
maybe
is.
Kate can answer it too. Primarily interested in that Prop JJ, which basically took excess tax revenue from casinos to be applied towards water projects in Colorado, and was hoping Robert could maybe, or Kate could maybe fill us in and make sure we've got a good seat at the table to make sure those funds, number one, don't harm agriculture, and hopefully agriculture's got a good seat at the table to latch onto some of those funds. So
Question, yes.
Yeah, great question, Nick. So with the passage of JJ, those funds go to the Colorado Water Plan grant program through CWCB. They estimate that for next year, it'll be about $1 million and a half extra, I think. And so that's why it'll be important for us to stay engaged with CWCB, because they're the entity that'll be passing out those grant funds.
Okay. All the blue book and everything was pretty vague on where that money was going to go and what it was going to be used for. And I already knew that you'd be on it, Robert, but I was just curious to get your thought.
Yep, thanks. So any input, just don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay.
And Robert is one of those CWCB board members who reads his packet front to back. So he will have read all of the applications for ag.
And that's what we need.
Yep.
That's great. All right. Always take notes from your readings, right? Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you for turning back on. Rulemaking actions for consideration and approval. Madison.
Yes, okay, thank you, Colleen. Today, I am bringing to you all a rulemaking action for your consideration and approval for the produce safety rule. So we had our hearing, it was held on October 15th. We had very strong stakeholder turnout, which is wonderful. And ICS worked really hard on that this last time to make sure that the community was engaged throughout the process. And we had 14 individuals representing 12 different organizations on the call. It was great. And Dwayne Sinning from ICS, who is the Produce Safety Manager, Program Manager, he presented the proposed rule. And Hollis was going to do this, but since Hollis is not here, this is what I'm presenting for you today. The rule update was to incorporate subpart E of the federal produce safety rule. And so the subpart was only recently enforced by the FDA, and we are incorporating it by reference into our rule. So if you look at the red line in the rule, you will see a date change. And the date change was from March 8th, 2019 to our updated date, which I believe is May in 2024. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, May of 2024. And it was a very small change.
Okay.
Right. It's to update the date to incorporate the new federal subpart E.
And no one opposed.
No one opposed. There were no public comment. There was no written comments received. We did not, throughout the stakeholder process, folks were engaged to understand what the needs of the community were, and that this is really an incorporation that we are continuing as the feds update their rules. And this had not been updated since 2019. So we were able to incorporate it.
Perfect. So we need to have a vote on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion for this rule.
I'm not going to word it correctly, but I move that we change, thank you so much. Finding these amendments are necessary and proper to carry out the provisions of Code of Safety Act 1. I move the commission approve the amendments to 8 CCR 1202-17.
Great, thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Harrison, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this change and this motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bethany.
All right, so a little bit of a change for this meeting, just in light of all of the other business that needs to get done. So this month, instead of having some grantees come to you guys, I brought a few to you through paper form or digital. So the idea of having these kind of grant profiles or the impacts of what our funding has been on these businesses and individuals, I think can't be overstated in light of what we've been discussing earlier with the potential for funding to be cut. This is what the funding looks like in people's everyday lives. So I'm glad that Colleen has suggested that we start looking at what these look like through our grants. So I'm not going to read through it because you guys have full intelligence and are able to look through it at your own leisure if you haven't already. But I did want to highlight that I do try to pull from some more recent funding. So that's where this Namaste just was one of the recent funders through the AgCro appropriation with this climate resiliency idea. So I'm trying to hit a little bit of our different programs. And so if there are places there you feel like you'd like to learn more, I did make a note about the next gen questions that you guys were asking. That really helps me to figure out, what you guys are interested in hearing about and who you're hearing from. So then I can also go back to grant program managers, and it's just an ongoing process of learning for us to ask grantees for their stories, making sure that it's okay for us to give out their photographs, to talk through the impacts of these. So it's a good conversation, a reminder for me with program managers to make sure that the grantees know that it's important to share their stories and that we would like to do that for you and for others. And so that's where some of the feedback kind of comes through from their grant reports that I was able to look through. And I think, so I pulled that one out in particular from Namaste for us to consider if we are able to continue doing that grant funding with agrivoltaics, is the potential of, if we need to shift grant funding dates to align better with growing seasons. That was their suggestion. And really thinking through how does that funding impact in the agricultural sector, which looks different than, than other sectors that aren't as affected by weather and seasonal changes. So that was a suggestion that I wanted to pull out. And then the AgriAbility one in particular is just, they have been such a great partner. They're doing incredible work. They have been part of that NIFA grant, which is federal funding. And that has been a priority in the last couple of legislative sessions, is to fund part of that behavioral health and mental health. And this goes into it as well as it's the AgriAbilities. It has a unique ability to help with people with physical and mental disabilities as well. So they've just been an incredible partner and been really great to work with and work statewide. And so I highly encourage you to go onto their website. I'll try to find the link after this. They have some testimonials and videos and things that you can look at and listen to, and it's very powerful and very impactful to think through. Again, I think Jeff mentioned earlier the inherent risk and danger of the agricultural lifestyle. So imagine doing that with not maybe all full use of your limbs or the ability to really move quickly if something is charging your way and you got to get out of the way. So this is just an incredible program. And then I also wanted to pull out again the community food access that Kate was mentioning earlier, moving towards tax credit, because it does have such a big impact on the people who have been getting grants, the ability to change up their infrastructure to meet the needs of their smaller communities that are food deserts, which is something that I think is still a misconception, is that rural areas have access to all of this food because they are growing it, and that is not the case. And it's actually really incredibly difficult for people from rural areas to get access to healthy, nutritious food, even though it's being grown in their areas. So just really applaud the work of Mickey and Adonai and their program with working with people to understand what they need. So look through that. And then finally, I think actually that was the last one. So I do want to pull out and highlight that there are some many stories to look at on the interactive map. So again, if you look at the map, which I did link in there on the location, if you look at the top kind of descriptor, you can go into their interactive map and look at your counties, look at the places in your region. You'll see that there's a pretty big gap in the Northwest. And that's not for lack of trying, but just hasn't really worked out super well to get producers and other retailers involved in the program. But that doesn't mean that they're not really working on it. And Mickey and I had a great conversation about the efforts that they're trying to make in all areas of Colorado, and working with regional food, not hubs necessarily, but just connectors in those areas to understand what the needs are for particular areas. So for your regions, if you want to take a look and see who has been awarded a grant, you can read their stories, you can try to contact them and talk to them more about what it is that they would need in order to be successful. I think that would be a great action item for you guys if you're so inclined, is to take a look at the map, first of all, and just, it's a lot of work put into it. So there's some really incredible stories.
Catherine.
Yeah, I just wanted to call your attention, Bethany, that let's see, at the local food summit or the regional food summits that Michelle is leading in the Northwest part of the state. So we are planning to have one of those regional food summits in Craig sometime in March. I don't think we've solidified a date yet, but I would connect with her as we move forward in planning that, and maybe make sure that some of these opportunities are mentioned, because we will have a bunch of consumers and hopefully in addition to producers and processors up there.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm sure that Mickey and Michelle are working on that, but thank you for that heads up. That's good for me to know about. And yeah, I'm sure there will be some really fruitful conversations, pun totally intended.
Great. Thank you, Bethany. That's really enlightening. And the map is really, telling.
Yeah.
There's,
I mean, just incredible work that's being done with staff at CDA that I am very privileged to get to work with and help support. And I don't do the hard work that they're doing. So I want to give them the full shout out that I just pulled this information together, but they're the ones working with people on the ground. So
that's awesome. Yeah, so do take a look at the map. It's very, like I said, very telling. So thank you. Any questions for Bethany? All right. I think it's really important that we keep, that we're aware of where the grant recipients and everything is. And I think it's just personalizes it even more when we hear about it and learn about it. Then when we get to visit it even more. So yeah. So
would that be one of the CDA priorities to continue to?
That's a good question. Would that be a priority to, if and when we do travel for our meetings, to visit the grant recipients? Would that be a priority? I see a shake.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. You have your charge. I think it just helps with them also to see the connection.
Yeah. And they love to tell their story. It's a great opportunity for them to practice telling their stories, right? Because we've talked a lot in agriculture about how we're not good at telling our stories. And so if we can kind of help give them a boost and then an opportunity to get on their platforms and really talk about the work that they're doing. It's great.
That's part of that leadership development. So it's great. Absolutely.
It's great perspective for us as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I think indirectly it also really ties into marketing, because you're also helping those businesses kind of get a bigger, voice out there. And especially since they are working with CDA, so I think it's a great idea.
Perfect. All right. So we're doing things a little out of order because of what we have going on. So we're going to do commission member updates now before lunch. So we stand in the way of lunch.
Oh. On the line there.
No pressure there, but lunch, no, anyway. So I will take volunteers for anybody who'd like to share what's going on in their area, their district or.
I'll go first just in case my daughter wakes up.
Absolutely,
She's
thank
nicely
you.
sleeping for the moment. So anyway, yeah, I'm so happy to be here in person. It's always so much fun to see everyone in actual reality. I just want to say like all good things. Honestly, I think that people just are really excited about all the programs the CDA is offering. I was talking about how there's just a lot of real positive feedback from the STAR program. I've talked to the center, I'm going to say them all wrong, conservation district, and also the ones that are working down in the south of the valley. Unfortunately, we don't have one. So actually the Acequia Association acted to kind of take all those applications, and they've just been really excited about the results they're seeing, and the producers are really excited about being able to get some incentive. And then I said, like they said, they did buy that no-till drill, and that was just like, they said they just like couldn't even keep up. There was just so much demand for people to be able to come in and seed some more drought-resistant perennials, and people are just really excited about it. And actually people not in the STAR program are really wanting it as well to be able to use the resource, and they just kind of had to like cut it off and be like, we have to prioritize our producers. And so I think there's definitely like a really big, and I think those small communities, there's just like major capital issues, and so I think having the actual equipment is such a big benefit, because a lot of those small farmers, like they don't even have like reliable tractors. They definitely don't have the money to buy like no-till drills, and so I think there's definitely that really big demand, and they weren't even being able to reach into some of the other communities. That was just 100% into San Luis area and Costilla County. They hadn't even really worked with anyone in Conejos. So these are huge, you know, like communities that have really, I think, you know, generationally, how would you say, historically disadvantaged communities that I think really are excited about the opportunities. Same with the food access grant. Like people are so happy that grant helped a lot of really awesome, I think really awesome businesses kind of get over some capital, I guess, problems they were having. Like I know there's like one really cute little apothecary that does all these cool herbs and also does like 100% local groceries and stuff at their facility, and they were just really struggling because there's just like this huge demand and they don't have the infrastructure, and so that grant has really helped them to get over those barriers. So I think it's really making a big difference for these small businesses. And I know they also got a grant through there's a co-op, like a farmer co-op on the farm park. And now, what do you call this? San Luis Valley Farm Park. I don't even know what its actual name is. Yeah. And thank you. Rio Grande Farm Park. My gosh, my brain. And they were able to get a really big grant to help that co-op. And that's like 100% the huge Mayan population that works in that with that farm park. And they were able to get a really significant grant to help them like do a bunch of marketing and stuff. So they're really excited about it. And I think it's going to really make a big difference for their businesses. So that's about it. I don't know. We had a great storm. That was really exciting and interesting at the same time, because I guess winter started a little earlier than I was planning. So no more digging posts, I guess. And then I did want to another shout out. I did actually apply. I did get a food access grant, so I'm really excited to be working on that. It helped me as well getting over some of those just like infrastructure purchases. And so I'm really excited to be launching that the first of the year, this kind of business expansion that I've been working on. But I also did apply for the agrovoltaic grant and did not get it, but then was just so excited because Sam Anderson and Kristen Boyson and Rosie, who worked on that grant, like reached out to me personally to help me connect with some of the technical assistance and maybe work with me on trying to get some other funds to do that program. So I just felt like that was like a big deal to me, because I was like, wow, well, thank you.
The program staff are awesome.
I know.
I
was like, they were like, oh yeah, we couldn't fund everyone, but we just wanted to reach out to people and like help them connect other ways. So I just thought that was something that I wanted to give a shout out to them, because I felt like that was a really big like extra step they didn't have to take. And I appreciated that, because it meant a lot to be able to like, oh, well, I still can work on things and stuff like that. And they also gave me some really good constructive feedback on like why I didn't get funded. And so that I think that really helps me to like going forward, how to, you know, look for other opportunities and maybe do a better job. So yeah, that's all I have. And
it's great. Wonderful. Thank you. Simon?
All right, I'll be quick. Just
No.
On the different entities, Bow and Arrow is doing fine with their marketing new customers and keeping existing customers within the mill. So that's working well, even with our location. And the farm end, we finished up our wheat planting yesterday and started our corn harvest yesterday. So the crop looks good as far as 4 years after the drought. We've got some white corn. We'll go back into the white corn market, hopefully with Bow and Arrow. And we grew 104 acres of blue with a new company out of Kentucky with some non-GMO blue. So hopefully that'll go well into the future. The yield might be up around 180 to 200. So that's good for us as far as blue. Yellow looks fine. That's going to be a good crop, it looks like, this year. On the cattle end, all the cows are back home. They'll do preg testing next week. We've got a field of sandfoin that we did with Colorado Ag Water Alliance. That looks good, kind of a water saving, less bloating type forage. So we've got about 46 acres and it looks like it's going to produce well, and opportunity to bale it and possibly use it on the cattle end to offset what we plant with triticale.
Oh, that's cool.
We're going to leave and try next year for the first time about 155 pair of cattle on the site with some teff grass. So we're going to see what we can do about not having the charge to ship the cows out, ship them home, the trucking, having them on and off the road, especially up around Pinecrest, which is by Gunnison. So the cowboys are back and forth a lot trying to monitor that section of land that we usually take the cattle to. So leaving them on the project might be beneficial for us financially to not have to have them drive so far to check on the cattle a certain time of the year, because they don't, they stay longer, it seems like, at the farm than they do in the permit ground anymore. So irrigation, we ran water till November 5th. That was a good year. As far as our full water allocation, we'll see what next year brings. There was a little snow in the high country, but we were able to utilize the majority of our water except for about 2,000 acre feet. And we were able to be involved in an SCPP program this past year that I think benefited us for last year's usage, that we'd leave a certain amount of water in the reservoir and it helped, you know, maintain and save some water. And we're looking at a program that'll go over a 4-year period instead of a 1 year through a program that might benefit where we farm in the desert. As everybody knows, the input costs were high in 24 and our commodity prices were all down except for cattle. So hopefully next year we'll see what it brings, because hay prices were 40 to 50 a ton less this year. Same with wheat, corn. Pricing is down, but we've got to put fertilizer in the ground and we won't have a crop. So we're trying to offset how we can use water saving. We're looking at going into some seed production and possibly less water and be able to utilize less acres. And because of our location, there's less disease and less carryover. So we've got some people up north that are interested in having us maybe do some type of seed production for them. So that's a new area that we're kind of looking at in 25, since it's already around the corner. Other than that, that's about it.
Thank you. Thanks. Who wants to go next?
I'll jump in.
All right, Jeff. I know I'm throwing you off.
Yeah,
I'm not calling
no,
on you.
that's all right. Yeah, Robert Sakata reminded me of something that happened last month that I forgot to mention in my last update, but we had a couple of people from from South Korea come and tour our facility while we were down there, along with a bunch of CDA staff and import-export people. But the tour went really well, and they seemed very, very excited about purchasing products and potatoes from not necessarily even Colorado, but even California as well. So I think that'll open up a really good door for that export opportunity. Just some other things that have been happening. The potato market is still about the same. It's not great, but volume and shipments out of the San Luis Valley have been really good. We're trying to really push for stocks on hand the first of the year to be down to hopefully have some incentive to raise the price up a little bit. So hopefully that'll happen. But yeah, the shipments have been really, really good. Some of the rejected barley from this fall has found its home into some cattle feeders. So that's been a really good outlet for them, and good cost-effective feed for that cattle for those cattle as well. Some things really exciting things that have been happening up in my neighborhood. It's not necessarily it's new to our neighborhood, but not necessarily to Elena's, but we're seeing a lot more collaboration between livestock producers and crop producers. We're seeing a lot of sheep come in back into our area. We have a lot of sheep on our farm, and going to for this next year as well, grazing winter rye and cover crops, and we had some oats that they're grazing on now. So we're starting to open up a lot of relationships, and really excited about those coming forward. Yeah, it feels like I just did an update like a week ago. Yes. Yeah, so that then kind of on a personal note, my daughter qualified for the Junior World Finals in Las Vegas for pole bending. So we'll be out there in December for her to race. So it's pretty exciting.
That's really cool.
That's neat.
What does she do? What is it?
It's pole bending. So there's 6 poles set up in a line. And so she'll run down one side, weave down both directions, and then run back down the other side. And the poles are 21 feet apart, something like that. And she'll do that pattern in about 20 and a half seconds.
Oh, wow, that's
So
cool.
it's pretty fun to watch.
I want to see some videos.
Yeah,
Send us some videos.
I'll pull some up.
Yeah, that'd be
I'll
cool.
take some while she's in
Yeah,
Vegas.
that'd be really cool. That's
Pass them
awesome.
along.
That's really awesome.
David, you want to keep going? Want to keep the table going?
Sure. Sure. Well, out on our way, it's been an excellent harvest season, if you will. I mean, that's one of the disadvantages of a drought, though, I guess, but there were no weather delays this year, so went from silage, beans, wheat drilling, corn, edible beans, milo, everything, and just actually finished up. There were a few farmers that got caught in this excellent recent moisture we had, and I think even there, it was so excellent the way it came that it went down. I think most people have gotten back in and pretty well wrapped up harvest. If not, they sure will here shortly. Yields were kind of all over the board, obviously, with all the hail that was going around this summer and the drought in areas. And then it's amazing, you know, you talk a few miles, even just 30 or 40 miles north of us, some of those guys are having almost record dryland corn yields around the Phillips County, Sedgwick County areas. They had phenomenal rain, and they have some pretty good water holding capacity soils to take advantage of that. So let's see, sugar beet prices are pretty good. So that's one thing in the commodity, grain commodities and sugar that was a good crop this year. Again, across the Colorado's had some of the best sugar it's had in many, many years, and actually a pretty decent crop overall. And they're processing those, and that's going pretty well. The factories are having actually, sometimes they're breaking records daily on what they've been able to process. The factories are running extremely well right now. So we're looking forward to that and getting started for next year. Cover crops also with the excellent fall heat units and things. Cover crops really got off to an excellent start where they possibly had irrigation there for a while. And now, of course, with these recent moisture storms, they're really going to settle in well and be in good health, I guess, if you will, for the winter. Cattle prices are very good. That was one thing with the heat. There were several sicknesses, if you will, with the dust. A lot of the dust controlled things. Some of the calves were getting sick off the cows weaning and going through cell barns, et cetera. Cattle prices are very good though. There's still occasionally some records set with some calves or et cetera going through some of the cell barns occasionally kind of up and down, through the weeks, but in general, I think you hear about 10 days ago, there were some cattle that kind of broke a record again for their weight classes as far as the price they brought. I think one thing on the moisture, and we were talking about roads a little bit before the meeting, but I think with all the droughts going on and things, I think a lot of the roads that you saw a lot of cracks and things as far as pavement and cement on some of those types of roads. And then dry roads, I guess, or gravel or natural roads, a lot of washboard concerns. Then when the moisture came, that helped on those dry roads, but also where the cracks were in the cement and the pavement, that moisture got in those cracks, kind of expanded. And then we've had some freezes. Now we're starting to see a lot of the highways and cement starting to pop up. And so the potholes not only got a lot larger all of a sudden, but and literally there's even some comments on social media that, there's some ladies going to work and out our way, and they even witnessed the state patrolman weaving and dodging, things like that.
Hopefully they're calling it in.
Yeah. So on 2-lane roads, sometimes that can be dangerous too, the potholes as well as dodging around. So yeah, we hope that CDOT and things will get some funding because actually there's probably, I'd say 90% of our roads out there are in grave condition, if you will. I mean, so there's going to be, not only the budgets are tight, but it will be a matter of concern of which roads get priorities probably when they can fix things. They've done, the patchwork type stuff, but like I say, even that new stuff you can see, there's just more cracks coming around the potholes that they fix and stuff. So I think the weather has dictated a lot of that current road conditions as well. Still concerned about rail corn coming in, so I assume the basis is a lot cheaper back east, and they're able to ship corn into our state. So that hurts our basis. So not only are the crops low in price, we're also competing with many other states because they're able to ship it in by rail. Which, being an ag producer, speaking of roads and things like that, we, in our own state, we have our taxes or, things like that, fix our roads. But when you bring in extra corn from other states, don't believe there's any taxes or anything like that. It'd be advantage to us if we could see some kind of something to help in those regards, because that corn or those grains, they're of course are going to be shipped again then too. So that's just more ways that the roads get taxed, literally, I guess, if you will, or used more and things like that. So it's not necessarily just our own commodities that are doing roads damage, or what I'm trying to say there. So, but when you bring in rail cars, that's 100 at a time. So that's over 300, actually about 350, equivalent to about 350 big semis that would be rolling down those roads. And it still has to be shipped from the rail site to their places that they deliver that corn. So I think that's good. But no, our storm was just ecstatic to see that. Unfortunately, I had an uncle pass away down Roswell in Mexico, and it was right during that. And of course, we needed to go south, and we couldn't. I was talking to a few before, but all those roads were closed, so we ended up driving east to get out of the snow, and then we went across the Nebraska, Texas, or Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then into Roswell that way. So it took more miles, but that way it was all rain for us, and just a beautiful rainstorm, basically the whole way. That was a huge benefit to this whole entire country here as far as moisture. And then, of course, the snow will melt slower and go in the ground. But speaking of neighbors, we were lucky. We had about 13 inches of snow, and then on the first night, and then the second night, we actually had 1.5 inches of rain. So it helped dissolve everything pretty well. And there's a little snow in the shady areas and north ditches yet, but in general, all that's soaked away. And then just, a few miles, like 20, 30 miles south of us, some of those people got upwards of anywhere from 30 inches to 40 some inches of snow. Some of them aren't even, well, as of today's Tuesday, I think it was Friday or so, I talked to one guy that doesn't have access to tractors. He still hadn't got to all of his cows yet to get someone fed. That's how deep it was for those guys. But otherwise, in general, that moisture, or in those snows, was very wet too. So it's going to be great moisture for everybody coming down the pipe. So I think that's about all I have too.
Great.
A producer like that hasn't been able to get to his cows, does he know that, he might have emergency assistance if he needs it, or you think we need to broadcast that more?
He was kind of in a hurry when I was visiting with him, so we didn't get into that discussion. But he's in an area too where, that's a good point to bring up too. I would think he would, but again, it's one of those deals where you assume something. So those are good points. Kate had reached out too during that storm, and I kind of mentioned too, our counties getting back to roads, and they'd be, trying to help other people out as well. Sometimes, like I say, it's a matter of miles. Some of these counties are pretty good size, square mileage wise, or not. But sometimes I think maybe you get back to emergency management or things. If we could, maybe some of the counties that just got rain, I know they'd have to work on muddy roads as well. But if they could come help some of those counties, possibly, coming open roads, where they're pretty close, because obviously the counties can't get all those roads, and then actually FEMA, or however you want to say, or the emergency management process. I know in our county, I've been working with the county commissioners and need to do it even more so. But when those events happen, a lot of times they have school routes, or they're going to say we have mud routes, they call them, and they rely on the members or the residents of the counties to get their children then to those mud routes. But at the same time, also along with that, I think we need to be saying, hey, these main roads here, or possibly going to this dairy or this feedlot or things like that, or this feed mill, so that people out there can get to access to those a little bit easier. And then even if it's every few miles, at least they're getting that whole county taken care of, so to speak. So yeah, those are all good points. I think there's a lot of ways to improve upon those things yet, but that's a good point on emergency management. I don't know that we really, even, in Yuma County there, I don't know that when we have those things, a lot of times you'll hear the coffee shop talk or whatever. A lot of people say, well, how do we do this? And, we just kind of waiting. So sometimes I think it is, there might be things where they say, call this number or get to this website. But as always, I think these conversations are great to try to get out to the public. So that's good. It's a good point. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and David, on other counties sending resources, that did happen in this last storm. There were at least 4 other counties mobilized and ready to send their resources to Los Animas County in particular. And I think at least 2 counties did. And then Los Animas County commissioners contracted with a number of heavy equipment private businesses to come out and assist on the non-state roads. So CDOT was actually down there helping. The National Guard was deployed for human search and rescue. Once the Guard was pulled back because search and rescue was done, CDOT was actually doing more than they normally do down there because a lot of folks tied in, and then those private contractors. And so that's really leaning hard on county commissioners for sure. But we'll be sure and send out both Dan Friesen and Jerry Casebolt's contact info we've been posting during storms. Bethany and Olga will post on Facebook and social links to resources. So you can always go on there and just share that with your community. And then you can always call Dan or Jerry directly as well. And again, they'll either get it to the state or to the locals and complete that loop.
Another thing I'd like to, that brings up a good point too, or maybe think of something else on the legal side. Sometimes when we walk with our or talk with our county commissioners and things, they don't want, I mean, some of the farmers may have let's say they have a big dozer blade or something like that they could help, and of course it's four-wheel drive. Sometimes it may work better to get through some of that deep snow than some of these motor graders, just has better traction. But with that being said, the private landowners, if you will, there's that liability issue there. So I think we should try to look and see how we can help that out, because those are emergency situations.
Yeah, it might be a contracting question for the county, because not to just look at our attorney for his advice on this, but I know Los Animas County commissioners had to contract the private businesses. They did it on a Sunday. They did it overnight on a Sunday. So you can do it quick turnaround, but that might be something to look at with the county, is how to be prepared for those emergency contracts to be in place so liability is covered and then you could be deployed.
Sure.
Really, to me, the emergency response like that, if we could assist producers to all have like that, man, if he could have this, you know, a neighbor or two that could have the assistance of having equipment that's necessary to do those things. If you have 5 neighbors that share that piece of equipment and it's specifically, you know, ear tag for that, I think that'd be beneficial, because then it's always right there and people, if they need it, they can go get it, or they know they can count on it, rather than having it a statewide, you know, have to move something around. Might just be another avenue to look at.
David, did y'all talk with CSU Extension? Because that was the other thing, is like, I know people were asking us, like, what is the state doing? But we were really working with local. And so pretty much everything that we got asked, we were turning it back around and saying, well, you know, have you talked to your local county office of emergency management or CSU Extension? Because they were on the ground immediately and they're better able to answer. But, you know, like, it just takes the time when you go like Kate to Dan to like us at the state level versus like right to your extension agent who will know and should be involved, because they were all part of the emergency, like, what's the SEOC? I can't remember.
Emergency Operations
Yeah,
Center.
there we go. Yeah. I was like, I know the acronym, but I can't remember what it stood for. So they're all part of that too, and they're actually probably a faster response than if people just go straight to the top. Just
I think that's all I have. So.
It's great. Moisture's good.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Harrison? Tell us what's in your world.
Hey. All right. Some of this I've probably said before, but I suppose I'll repeat it. Overall in Fruit World, I think it was an overall good year with some challenges. Markets were strong, prices stay strong, but that's largely because I think across the board yields were down. I think at the risk of being wildly inaccurate, I would guess that as an industry we had about 80% of the peach production that we normally do. I think in some areas, like down our way, it was a little less than 80%, and then a couple of folks up in the Palisade area were probably above that. Most of that's due to freeze and hail and weather events, though insect and pest damage was of particular note this year. Grasshoppers more than anything else. But I heard many producers report higher rates of even the common pests that we normally have pretty good control of. So for whatever reason, that also hit the yields. But then, you know, even with apples, it was a big year for apples across the board, but the markets and the prices stayed strong, which was nice. It was a good water year. I think everyone got all the water they needed for the most part. Our big issue, which is beyond just annual year-to-year water on our canal, is sedimentation. We are rapidly losing our reservoir. There's a couple of barriers there, namely right now, just that the Bureau is dragging their feet. It just feels like there's always another study and there's never any action that gets taken. We do have the support of the state right now, which is nice. However, there's concern now that the dredge and fill bill, Dylan Roberts' dredge and fill bill is going to potentially prevent us from remediating the issue in our reservoir. So that remains to be seen, though it's been brought up as a possible issue. I'd say going back to fruit, I think, like I said, markets were strong. We did see a fairly significant shift in buying patterns, largely around food access organizations, as the pandemic funds and other funds that were supporting a lot of purchasing for food banks and food access organizations began to dwindle. We saw a major shift on our farm in the amount that went into those market channels. And that really has an impact when it comes to seconds grade fruit. So I will be, I think, as those, though some federal money was just reappropriated for to refund some of those food pantry programs. I think that is a thing that we're looking at down the road, is what those seconds markets look like long term. They've been very, very strong for us and really critical for our business. And I know many folks that are, comparable farms to us, but that's something that we have an eye on, is where those second markets are going to be down the road, particularly for peaches. Not really related to fruit, but just anecdotally, our downtowns in our little rural communities here in Delta County just seem to be thriving. I have no idea if these businesses are successful, but I'm noticing fewer storefronts closed, more kind of, I would have thought not in a million years would we have a clothing store open up in downtown Hotchkiss, but we're seeing there's stores that I thought that I would have thought would never return to little, to small towns that are opening up. I don't know. I can't say anything about whether that's an indicator of the broader economy, whether that's an indicator of the way that our community, the particular economics of our community. But I just think it's worth noting that, at least in our area, there's some sort of shocking prosperity in the downtowns, or at least on the face they are. They could all be losing money, who knows, but at least they're open. Last but not least, I'll finish off on a personal note that your friend and mine, Bethany, and I did a half marathon a couple weeks ago together, and she did a great job. She's a physically fit, exceptional runner, and we had a lot of fun doing it together. I was pleased to be able to do that. So, anyways, that's the report from out here.
A half marathon?
Was a half marathon. I'll say Christy Gladem with the Insectary also ran with us. And but no, I saw the back of Harrison and then he was gone. Very incredible. It was a lot of fun though. CDA.
That's good. All right. Thanks, Harrison. Nick? And what marathon have you ran?
I'm not running any marathons. In fact, I'm sorry I didn't get to be there in person today. Unfortunately, plowing snow last weekend, I spent a little bit too much time in the skid steer and really screwed up my back. So the drive in there to Broomfield today just wasn't gonna happen. So I'm still licking my wounds from the storm and hopefully gonna make a recovery. But um, let's see. I gotta say, Elena, I really wish I could have met your little guy today and wanted to tell you how well behaved he is. My kids would have already started that room on fire by now, so I haven't heard hardly a peep. So good job raising a well-mannered kid. A lot of overlap in my report with David, so I won't bore you with redundancy, but snow line and I ended up getting about 20 inches of snow out here, which we still have quite a bit of snow on the ground. And certainly the moisture was welcome, but created some definite challenges here. And then also on our family operation in southeastern Colorado, in Crowley County there, it was more the mud that created the challenges there. There was plenty of snow, but there's still cattle that people can't get to. And the guy that watches our cows down there, people can't even, they're feeding off the side of the county roads because the pastures are so wet. But so that moisture is very welcome, but creating some problems getting feed to animals. And the snow is so wet and heavy, it's kind of creating some unintended or something that nobody really thought about. It laid over a lot of the standing grass that's around. So I think it's a good thing hay's cheap. It may not be that way for a while because most of the standing dead forage that people rely on in the wintertime down there is laid flat on the ground. So it'll be interesting to see what the hay market does down there over the next 6 months. I think it's probably headed north. Yeah, a lot of redundancy in my report on David pretty well covered commodities and everything else. One exciting thing we've got going on the ranch right now is we had a PhD student doing a fairly elaborate range study on the ranch, which started in 2020 and went on for 3 years. That project got wrapped up and she got her PhD, but she's now working on publishing a lot of kind of side projects that stemmed off of that research. And she just got her comments back from getting published in Range Ecology and Management. So that's pretty exciting to see, 4 years of not a whole lot of work on my part, but pretty exciting to see a lot of her work really get recognized, and really proud of her, but really neat to see it. And maybe a little impact our part hopefully can have an impact on conservation and the range conservation as a whole. I think that's about it.
Hope your back gets better.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah. Catherine.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm not over there. I was over there at Regenerate and it snowed every single day that we were there. So I can sympathize everybody that was at Regenerate. It sort of delayed their departures. People that were going south, of course, could not, as David said. So a little bit excitement, although it did melt off the roads right there at the National Western pretty much every day. So traveling back and forth from home in the area wasn't too bad. I drove in snow both on the way there and on the way back. So the mountains got a bunch of snow, but here in Grand Junction, we just got a dusting. And believe it or not, people have cut their hay again. So I think this is 4 or 5 cuttings on mixed pasture. So there's still hay sitting down drying here in Grand Junction, which is a little shocking. My cattle came down from the high country sort of the end of October, had them here through Regenerate, sorted through them, and now they're down in stockpiled feed down in Delta. I have been watching the sales, and yeah, cattle prices are pretty high out here in the West as well. There still has been some dispersal sales, so people are taking advantage of the high prices. Not the big guys, but some of the moderate size cattle operations look like they're getting out of it and taking advantage of the prices. Um, I guess that's all I know. Corn harvest is sort of wrapping up. There's still a few fields that are being done, especially down in the Delta area. I think it's pretty wrapped up in Grand Junction. Besides that, I'm still working with the processing project in Craig, and we've expanded the processing projects quite a bit to increase the capacity of our proposal because people keep coming with large lots of cattle that they would like to contract to be processed. So that plant has added more cold storage and hanging capacity, as well as being able to dock and load carcasses into semis to go out to be fabricated elsewhere. We've also split off in our building in the upstairs area. We're going to build out a nonprofit that we're calling the Resilient Agricultural Training Center, where we hope to use the data we collect from carcass producers to educate ranchers about their genetics and sort of growing techniques, and then also follow that all the way to the plate and educate not only butchers and meat cutters, but consumers, both at the home kitchen and at the commercial level. So we've broken out a nonprofit that I'm working on exclusively, and then also broke out the value added piece to a different property because we expanded the processing capability. We had to take the value added section out of that facility and move it onto a separate location. So I'm working on that as well. So things are moving right along. It's getting a lot more excitement than we expected and a lot more interest to use. So that's actually very surprising to us because nobody up there was finishing cattle, but apparently a lot of people are planning on doing that, and we're having cattle come down from Wyoming, and the Fitch Ranch current processing facility is going through another expansion, hopefully complete in 10 weeks, but they're also adding cold storage just to get through until we have the new plant online. So for some reason, it's just booming up there. And I guess that's about the updates around here. I can't think of anything else. Oh, just one more thing. The building going on in the Grand Valley is just blowing me away. So the last couple years, it's been a lot of apartment buildings, but now the single housing boom is back on. There are subdivisions going in everywhere, both infill inside city limits and out in the county as well. So I'm really pretty much surrounded now by smaller parcels. And that's a little concerning to me because I do have my cattle here probably only 3 months out of the year at this time, but I'm expecting to have more issues with neighbors as time goes by. That's about it.
The portrait behind you, is that one of your properties?
No.
Oh, okay. It looks like it should be though.
That's actually in England.
Okay.
It's a painting my parents collected when they lived in Nottingham.
It looks like some of the pictures you sent me one time, so that's what I was asking. All right, great, thank you.
Yeah.
So my report is very similar to David's. Harvest has been good. It's been on track, incredibly warm, which caused beet harvest to have to be shut down on days because it was too hot for them to deliver the sugar beets. I am aware that there are some sugar beets way far south of Akron that they're going to have to mud out because of the storms, but that doesn't happen a whole lot. I was talking to Kate about it yesterday, and she asked what the season is, and I said 40 years ago, when I was supposed to be getting married on December 1st, we were still mudding out beets. And my husband's grandmother, whose fields we were on, she goes, "You're not getting married until you get those beets out." I was like, "You gotta be." So anyway, I know that there's some down there that still need to be taken out. Let's see. We have heard we've heard that one of our larger receiving locations in Johnstown that takes grain is closing, but we've also heard rumor that they might have bought the old Coors plant, and they might be transferring over there. So that's still to be determined what's happening. So we're waiting to see what's gonna happen there. A lot less barley being planted. We can only think of about a couple producers that are doing that in compared to what it used to be because of the change that Coors did. I was scheduled to do the school lunch, go eat with some school kids, and one of our last Peplers passed away, and so we had to attend a funeral. But I did establish a relationship with that school, and I'm hoping to get back over there and have lunch with the kids and everything. But I was sad that I didn't get to go that day. Yeah. I've done a couple presentations to some Rotaries. They've invited me in to talk about agriculture and what's going on in the world of agriculture. So I've done that, and I took in my Women in Agriculture presentation and shared that with them. The Colorado Foundation for Ag, the literacy program, is just going leaps and bounds, and that's exciting to see the growth of how that projects are happening in that. I judged the Make It With Wool contest again this year. It's really nice to see that the projects are still being made and the wool is being used and the wool industry is being recognized for it. Farmers Union Convention is the end of this week that I'll be attending. And I'm finding that networking with people who want to know about ag and that are involved in ag just is everywhere. Kent and I have season tickets to CSU football games, and it's amazing that the networking that we do and the conversations that we have just within sitting amongst the people that we are while watching a winning bowl gaming heading team head to the bowl since many years. So as well as CU. So that's kind of exciting to have those conversations. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. So.
How's your freeway or whatever you want to say, or that?
The thing east of us?
Is that in the process?
Yeah. You know, a developer was supposed to send us a map to kind of show us how it was going to happen. I can't think what they're calling it because I try to forget it. And to see how it was going to go. The big house, the big brick house next to us is up for sale. There was a divorce in that family with that couple after 40 some years, and they're selling that. So there's been conversation how it's going to go around that house, and I'm hoping they're disclosing that there's a road going around, maybe not over the top of them. I-25 to the west of us has been moving. They're putting 2 extra lanes, but it's kind of slowed down in the last few weeks. So, but as far as the one over east of us, what's the word? No news is good news? Yeah. They are starting up from 66. They have $1 million to go a mile. And that's, so it's going to go from 66 for a mile. So it's going to take $3 more million to get to us. So, because it's about 3 miles away from us. So we'll just see what happens. $1 million mile, just like that one that my son said they needed to spend $2 million on over in your neighborhoods. Yeah.
And that's mostly for distribution type centers. Is that why?
Well, yeah. We know that they've done some, they've done some talking with Kent and I about pipelines and things like that are going in our mailboxes. And so the people that are doing those things are contacting us, and they're giving us more information than we are getting from CDOT or Weld County. But it's still a mystery who and what our neighbors will be and what those roads will look like and where they are going. So we don't know. I'm waiting on this last map, but I know it's going through where it's going through right now. There are a lot of homes and dairies that they need to be talking to, and they haven't yet. So
sounds to me like a good opportunity for some solar panel projects. Urban solar panel
stuff.
projects.
Yeah.
They could produce their own electricity off of their rooftops.
Well, and the question always is, where's the water going to come from? That's always the big question. I am learning, I guess I will say that I am learning a lot about how to apply for EQIP. You know, we're looking to putting in a couple more sprinklers, and I'm learning about EQIP applying. And on a side note, Kent has decided to retire, and so we're leasing out more of our ground. Our world is changing in the next
Retire
50
from
days.
farming or
And-
retire from
Well,
his
he
other
won't,
job?
he doesn't have the opportunity to retire from the other job. Will be employed with them until the end of the time. And then I'm sure they'll move new people in.
Retiring from farming.
But retiring from farming, he has seen too many of his friends get hurt because of, falling out of tractors and things, and he just has decided, so we're leasing out our grounds. So like our daughter says, we need to find, she was doing Christmas shopping, and she goes, I need Dad to have some hobbies, and I said, we all do. So, so that's where we're at. Yeah. All right, well, I think we're at the perfect timing. I think it's 11:55 and lunch is supposed to start at 12. So we will presume at 12:45. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Colleen.
Oops.
Colleen, I'm gonna be on childcare starting in about 15-20 minutes, so I'll still be on, but will be maybe not as on as I have been.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. All right, we're back. We had a great lunch. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes,
Mara.
thank you.
That was wonderful. So it looks like we are moving into bylaw revisions. Kate.
Great. The bylaws are linked in your packet. We do not have any recommended bylaw changes this year, but it is part of our bylaws to review our bylaws at our annual meeting. So this could be a time, if there is any discussion on bylaw reviews, we can entertain that. And if there is none, then I think we would probably just move to approve the bylaws as written and keep them going for the next year.
Okay. Any suggestions, thoughts, as you've had the opportunity to look at the bylaws? Revisions? Right, hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the bylaws as they are.
I move we approve the bylaws. as they-
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Simon. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the bylaws as they are. All, any discussion? Hearing. Melissa's your hand up for a reason. Okay, that's okay. Just checking. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion pass. Moving on, officer elections. Kate.
Great. So as per our bylaws, in the month of October meeting, we established a 2-member nominating committee from the commission. So this year that was Catherine and Roberto. And then I worked with Catherine and Roberto to get their nominations to put forward for both chair and vice chair, since the secretary role is served by us at CDA. So I will hand it over to Catherine to make her nominations.
Hi, everybody. So after talking this over for a while, we'd like to nominate Simon Martinez as the chairperson and Jeff McCulloch as the vice chair. So I move that we accept that roster.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
There's been 2 seconds. Is there any discussion? If not, we will move forward on this motion to approve Simon as chair and Jeff as vice chair. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations. All right.
I just want to say, Colleen, we really appreciate you taking on that job, and you've done a fabulous job. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
Agreed.
Thank you. It's been my honor. It's been my honor. And if you ever need help, holler, but I know you guys are going to do a great job. So we move forward. I'm glad to be an audience member.
And thank you for finishing this meeting today. as
Okay,
chair.
that's good to know. I was making that assumption. So your oath starts in December. All right, Bethany, outreach opportunities, tours, and CDA public.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So I asked if I could be a little further down on the agenda so that we can roll into our discussion of next year's meetings and locations. And so I wanted to get a sense from you guys on how you felt this past year went with public engagement. If you've heard from any of your constituents on things that they liked, things that they would like to see more of. So just a refresher, this was the first year that we did the public forums before all of the in-person different location meetings. So we were in Ray, we went to the San Luis Valley and had one in Alamosa. We were in Grand Junction and had one in the Palisade area at the insectary. And then we didn't have one today, but so with those, just we did try to incorporate some more field tour opportunities, visiting some grantees, inviting some partners to come with us and to be part of these forums. And then yesterday was our fourth public forum that was in a virtual setting. So if you're able to be on, thank you so much. We had really good participation. So across the board, just kind of depending on the region and the concerns that people have in those regions kind of, I think, dictated the number of people who participated and the type of people. But I think I'm always looking, and I think you are too, for ways to continue to invite people who maybe haven't been part of these conversations or don't know anything about Ag Commission or don't really know what it is that you do. So yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit more time to discuss all of that so that as we're looking at this next 2025 season, there's some options for three in-person locations. Does that include Broomfield? I'm always, so it would be two off-sites that are anywhere else in the state. And so that's for you guys to think through. And then the last one would be in Broomfield. So I have some suggestions, some things that I've thought through. So I just wanted to start with that to get everyone's brains kind of thinking through, again, what went well last year. And let's start with that question first. Like, what went well with these forums or public engagement in the last 12 months? And then let's think through, if they didn't go well, how can we address that in the next 12 months? So that's my first question to you all for a little discussions. What do you think went well with our last few public engagement?
I thought they all were great. I thought the topics pertain to the area that we were in and the questions did we not have one in Denver too?
Oh, we did. You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Dahlia campus.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
So I think, the locations really brought a population in and they asked questions that they were important, especially during the time of year that we were there, and the different things that were going to possibly be on ballot elections, those kind of questions that they kind of wanted clarification of and whether we could address those or not. But I thought they were a great asset. I think yesterday was really good. I'd be curious to know if we had any feedback from yesterday.
I think we sent out a survey, like a post-webinar survey. I don't know what the results of that are yet.
Okay.
I know we had about 45 people who were on, but I don't know. I think it was a mix of CDA staff and public. So we can kind of get the breakdown for that, which is the nice thing about webinars is you can kind of see it.
I know, and when we finished it yesterday, I don't know if it popped up on you guys's, but mine asked what county I was from.
Oh.
Okay. So I don't know if that's data that you can also collect. Yeah.
Thanks, Colleen. Anyone else have thoughts? Jeff, Elena, I'm curious about if you guys heard anything after the San Luis Valley one or.
I didn't hear anything afterwards, but I thought the San Luis Valley one went really well. It was really well attended and it was just a good place. And I think a lot of good questions came out of that. And I always like Kate's updates of the commission and what's happening in the commission. I think that gives a lot of information to the community. So I think that portion of it is really valuable.
I'll pick on David because we were over in Ray. How did you feel like that went.
Excuse me, I thought it went extremely well. Had a few comments afterwards that, yeah, they agreed as well with that, and most of the comments, well, I'd say 100% of them were positive, but I guess what I'd like to say is they said it's nice to put faces to staff and things. So when the CDA staff was there as well, and some of us Ag Commission members were there, even though we had the opportunity to Zooms and things, it's nice to converse in person sometimes. And again, like Colleen said, you know, we topics. I think Robert was there as well that day, wasn't he? And you know, obviously a lot of concerns from that area and taking them on. We had a great turnout. I don't know if it was the best one this year, but we had, that room was very, very full.
Yeah.
So I think that just showed the interest from our county too, as well as doing those things. So, and I appreciate this opportunity to get to go around and see the other things going on across the state as well when we do the, I guess I call them tours, but whatever you'd like to call them. But I think that's awesome as well. So even lived here in Colorado all my life, still haven't, there's a lot of the places we go to I haven't seen. I think that's awesome. And then it helps converse too when we're out and about talking to ag people. So I think they were very, very, very well worthwhile.
And I really liked that there was an instructor that brought some of his FFA.
Yes.
That was really nice.
Yes.
Yeah,
always.
Bethany,
Yeah.
was the Ray one the best attendance of any of them? And did you do anything different to promote that? Or David, did you do anything to promote it? Because it sure seemed like there was a pretty good following out there. David, did you push that in like the local papers or anything like that?
You know, to be honest, Nick, no on that, but I'm kind of a conversation. I mean, obviously talking here, I didn't sound like I'm a conversationalist, but I do believe in calling people, talking to them one-on-one. I did promote that very heavy, calling organizations, organizational leaders, et cetera, and people that are very active in the ag communities out that way, and let them know, and then they in turn pass the word along to some of their employees or constituents, et cetera. So I did highly, and I'm sure Bethany had it all over too, you know, as far as social.
Yeah.
But yes.
We tried with all of them, you know, we did public notices, put things on social media. I sent, you know, invitations out to my list, tried to send them out to different CDA staff and encourage them to put them in their newsletters. So we had, you know, some generation of traffic through like the soil health newsletter and conservation districts, things like that. But there's always people that we're going to miss and that we can do better. And so I think for me, that would be a takeaway is who are we not inviting? How do I get to them kind of thing. So I have some thoughts around like, you know, CSU extension and kind of leaning on them more heavily to help us get the word out, utilizing some of our email lists with different grantees and people who are signed up with like, you know, pesticide regulations, that kind of stuff. So we try to push it as much as we can, knowing that people are super busy. I think in particular, the Eastern Plains was honestly a little concerned about things happening around wolves at the time. And so some of the topical concerns definitely pull people out more. So if we can identify, I think, more areas of concern or challenges or things that we can be really specific on that we're going to focus on, that might also help to bring people in. And then I did want to turn over to Catherine and Harrison for like the Palisade area. We kind of struggled a little bit, I think, with getting some people out there, but and Harrison, I know you and I talked through like trying to be more in rural areas that don't see meetings very often and kind of logistical challenges with that.
And that's what I was going to say. It's like we've been in Grand Junction every year, I think. And I think going out into the smaller communities is really important. So I was going to suggest for next year, Rifle, Rangeley, somewhere way out in the northwestern part of the state where We don't have a big presence. We don't have a lot of contacts. So somewhere where we really haven't had a presence.
Mhm.
And I would push for like an Olathe or a Delta or somewhere in New York. I feel like Grand Junction, because it's off I-70, just gets hit every time.
Yeah.
And oftentimes Olathe and the North Fork aren't as well trafficked.
Yeah.
It was just. Oh, sorry. You go, Catherine.
Yeah, even Ridgeway or somewhere down even further south than that. But
sure. Yeah, I just remember feeling so harried during the season. I mean, I'm always mildly unreliable with my schedule, but I know we got to the Palisade one, and I think there was two commissioners. Even of the commission, there was only two of us there, and so it may be that this is a nice time to be having our annual meeting in Denver, and though it may be nice to focus some of our off-season meetings in the sticks, and our on-season meetings, have those in Denver, so it's not quite as doesn't feel as much of a loss if we have to zoom in for them. Not that coming to.
No, that's a good point. I think that's true. And that's exactly why I wanted to have this discussion before you talk through your sites for the next meetings, because I think those are important. I think somebody else was trying to add something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's just getting back to Nick's question too. Nick, I just remembered, I also, since we were hosting it, so to speak, in Eastern Colorado, but Yuma County in particular, I reached out to all the surrounding counties of Yuma County too, and talked to their administrations, and that involved, I think, 6 or 8 counties besides Yuma County. And I probably should have went just a little further too, because I mean, a lot of them are, pretty close to us, but I think that also helped draw in, because we had some out of towners, I guess is what I would say too, that came to that meeting too, as much as 75 so miles away, that actually attended that meeting. So I think that helped a little bit too, talking to county administrators from surrounding counties as well.
I think I reached out to Washington County and Morgan County commissioners.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I'll really step out on a limb here. We've had a few visitors down in Southwest Colorado. It's always open for a meeting down in our part of the state if it comes up. I mean, it's a ways off the beaten path, but it's a different area.
Well,
Desert country. You're good.
Go for it. No, I'm glad you said that, because in addition to me being super clumsy with stuff, my brain was going that direction. So I wanted kind of to parlay what you're saying, Simon, into some of this discussion with who are we not reaching, and being in rural areas where people don't see very much action, and they don't necessarily feel like they're part of decision-making conversations. So thinking through what other meetings or what other partners are doing things in those areas where we can piggyback on. So even if we don't have a meeting per se in those locations, that doesn't mean that you guys can't be out there participating, or we can't be really strategic with identifying other opportunities to get you guys out in those areas. So I just want to say, like, I don't want to put all our eggs in the meeting location basket for the next, I think those are part of what I want to talk about, is being strategic with those locations, but also realizing that I'm thinking bigger than just the meeting locations themselves to involve you guys. Go ahead, Nick.
I don't know if this would be a reach or not, but I'm sure, are you blasting out like the virtual meeting? Are you blasting it out to the like industry groups, corn growers, cattlemen's, groups like that?
We haven't done it industry specific. I think I'm trying to do more word of mouth kind of grassroots kind of things, so that if people are in those areas. I struggle with that sometimes, because I don't want to just get email fatigue happening. But I'm thinking more like if there are specific people within those organizations that can help get the word out to their groups. Like if there's like if I do need to send it to Nick Colglazier, for example, for corn growers, or if there's a specific person, I would love to hear that from you guys as well. Like, this person would be a great person to add to your list, because they will get the word out to their constituents rather than me trying to email blast everybody every time. Does that make sense?
We also do in our monthly newsletter, we do add these too.
Yeah.
So it is also a reminder to like association leaders to make sure they're subscribed to the newsletter and are following that, as well as CDA at a glance.
Yeah.
And I think all of us deal with email fatigue and newsletter fatigue and everything else, and we all kind of have our ones that we watch. But like Colorado Cattlemen's puts out like a weekly blast of, legislative updates, important meetings, big kind of hot button issues. And I just wonder if that would, I know a lot of people read that, and I get a lot of I don't know if that, and I'm sure a lot of these industry groups have those that, if you could sneak hey, would you mind throwing this in your newsletter or your update or something like that?
No, I think that's a great point. And I'm learning more as I go. So
and Lori Boyer has started a new monthly gathering.
Yeah.
Maybe, can you go into detail on what she's doing there?
So it's like a Colorado communications meeting.
Right.
So it's different communications professionals from different organizations. I think Cattlemen's I don't think they have somebody on there, but they're like Northern Water, there was a representative. And so, yeah, Olga and I have been invited to that. And that's a good spot to start. And again, like, I think if you guys have people that and if you are signed up for newsletters like that, Nick, if you guys want to shoot those over to me and say, like, this is where I get a lot of my information, you should probably contact them. Then that helps me too, because it's really hard for me to try to figure out, like, where is everybody getting their information from if you aren't telling me where you get your information from. So.
And Bethany was really good in this last meeting with Lori, that Lori's organized, is we mentioned that there was going to be the virtual meeting, and we didn't know exactly the time. And so, but Bethany was real good about it. It'll all be on the website. And if any of you have anything that you would like to contribute that's going on in the state, please let me know so I can put it on the CDA website. So all the CLAs and the corn growers and the farm bureaus and all those can give that count, add that to the calendar for CDA if they send it to you and Bethany. So I thought that was a really good way to kind of conglomerate things.
Yeah, these are great suggestions. And as we are moving into other conversations, please just know that my email is always open and I don't get email fatigue. I enjoy seeing where other people are getting information from and have ideas. So, because I know if you're like me, you're going to get an idea about this at like 2 a.m. when you're supposed to be sleeping. So just write it down and then shoot me an email later. But I did want to also bring up, kind of to my point of, we have a limited number of meeting locations this year, but one of the reasons I was taking notes on your priorities is so I can start thinking through too, again, other regional partners that are having meetings that might fall within these priorities, and trying to see if we can piggyback a little bit so that not all of you feel like you have to go to a meeting in the Southwest. But if Simon knows about it and we can be more specific about, like, inviting our constituents to come talk with you because you're going to be at this meeting, kind of idea. I still think, there's some opportunities for us to have a bigger presence at things like, the Nutrient Ag Day, for example, like out at CSU, like Colorado Proud has a table there. So if we can be more specific about inviting you all to join us there, for example, and then have that kind of broadcast out to our community of, hey, we're going to be at this event. These are who's going to be there. Come just talk to us, and be a little more casual that way. And we don't have to be super formal every single time. So if you have any events like that are happening that you think would be a great opportunity for us to be present at, I'd love that as well. Basin roundtable meetings are great. Other like CPW stakeholder meetings that are going to be happening around the state. So I'm going to try to be better about communicating those opportunities for you guys so that we can see if we can have some conversations in other areas of the state that we will not be meeting in. And then I was just going to throw out too, again, we were talking through Spanish language only meeting, like something in the community So I wanted to see how that felt with you guys about trying to pull something that is specific to one stakeholder group that we haven't reached before. Or if there are others that you think of that we should maybe be more specific. I mean, we can do the broad ones, which is great, and we can do some more targeted ones. So any thoughts on any other groups that we should be reaching out to besides Spanish language?
Bethany, how many people have been taking advantage of the interpreter service that you've been providing?
That's a great question, Catherine, and kind of what precipitated part of this conversation is, short answer is not many that we know of. If people don't request interpretation, we don't really have a good idea of who is actually utilizing it when they're getting online. And I think to date, we have only had a couple of people request it at our different ad commission meetings, and then at forums, to my knowledge, we have not had any. So that's why we were thinking part of the problem might be just feeling like they're not connected to what it is that we're talking about. So if we can be really specific on a topic that is of interest to the Spanish language community, maybe we just, work with the programs that we have that are working with those communities so that we can reach them. Because I think one of the things that we've learned is that we're not getting a lot of people coming to these meetings exactly. They're not interested in necessarily sitting and listening to us talk about bylaws, but they might be interested in other topics that we're not necessarily covering. Harrison, and then Nick.
I was just gonna say, we've had a couple of, question for Spanish language is, do you want to target, who is the target Spanish language audience? Is it residents? Is it guest workers? Is it farm workers? Is it folks in other parts of the supply chain? I feel like it's not quite as easy as just saying Spanish language, considering how diverse the participation from Spanish language only speakers is in the ag world.
I think those are great questions, because I think that would be part of the timeliness, right? Like, this is a broader conversation. We don't really know exactly what's going to be happening necessarily in the next few months. So I think you're right that we should be asking those questions of what would be the topic of interest, and then who would be interested in learning more about that.
And from our perspective, the vast majority of the folks that would be interested from our perspective, our farm's perspective, are H-2A workers. So it would have to be during the spring, summer, or fall. And then I know there's a huge population of Spanish language folks sorry, just so you know why I'm okay. I think particularly in our area, a lot of folks' citizenship is not 100% secure, and they're going to be pretty reluctant to show up to a meeting with the state, frankly. So in some ways, even though I think they may be the group that is most critical to engage, it's probably the least likely to be able to engage, just because of distrust of meetings and things like that. So anyways, I asked a question, but I also figure I'll offer feedback from our farm's point of view, which is that it would be great. I think our H-2A workers would love to know a little bit more about what the state's doing to create good working conditions and education and opportunities for them, and offer feedback about what they could use from the state.
I appreciate that feedback. It's really important to think about how do we make CDA feel accessible and less scary, so that because otherwise, you're right, we don't want to frighten people away just because we're a state government.
And that's just to mention the work that Aldo is doing, and Bethany is plugged in with Aldo Parra, who is doing bilingual meetings around the state. So I think we want to work in tandem with where Aldo's at.
Yes, and that's actually pretty timely too, because he has 2 new coordinators who will be starting soon, and so we'll be having those conversations about what they're planning on for outreach. And so it may just look like they're hosting meetings, and then we invite you all to come. kind of thing. So we can talk through that. It doesn't have to be ours. But go ahead, Nick. I feel bad. You've had your little fake hand up for a while.
Oh, no, that's fine. I guess just thinking out loud, I've got several comments now, but maybe that is a really good case for targeting certain demographics or groups for those meetings so that you can have, Kate's update's great, but if you could have all there for a specific group, would it draw in or get a little better attendance? So maybe that's a good case for targeting certain groups at certain times. The other thought I had, just thinking of groups that we need to be working on. I thought that Denver forum was great. The attendance was not there. Figuring out give us a hand figuring that out. But I enjoyed that location, and I wish we would have had a little better turnout. And then, I guess the other one that comes to mind is the beginning farmers, how to target that audience, because I think they would be pretty active in their comments and, bring some fresh ideas. And that's what I have.
Those are all great. This is a lot of good food for thought for me going forward. And I don't want this to feel like Bethany's decisions of like where she thinks we should go kind of thing. I definitely want you guys to feel like this is your engagement, right? These are your stakeholders. So this definitely needs to come from you all. And I'm happy to support and put frameworks together to put that in place. But all that to say, I'm really interested to see where you guys decide that you want to be in the next in the next year. And then we can talk through again kind of what that looks like on the outreach. But I do want to say again, thank you so much. And kudos to you all for trying something new. I think this is the first Ag Commission that's just been this involved in trying to do stakeholder engagement at this level. And you all have just jumped in with both feet, even if you haven't been able to attend every single one. I know that you all support it, and that really gives me a lot of motivation, and I really appreciate it. So I wanted to make sure that I said that. And with that, I will just finish with I have some ideas for pre-meeting locations, but I really want us to think again about areas that we have not been in, who would really benefit, right? So thinking through all the things you guys just said, who are target audiences that we haven't reached too much, where have we not been that would really benefit from having you guys there? And then who are potential partners that we could get to help us bring in more people so that we can hit a little broader of an audience when we're in an area. So just think all those things in the back of your head. Go ahead, Riley. Yeah.
So I keep thinking public engagement is our key focus in this discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the most hot button topic that we're involved with right now?
I have to say that loud.
Just the one.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess wolves are right now.
So the Range Rider program,
Yeah.
right? So we're hosting these workshops. To me, if we can have a presence there and meet one-on-one with the producers, I think that will really bolster our public relations and our understanding of what's going on in those communities. So we're talking about, immediate upcoming public engagement. I think that's prime time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and it helps me when I'm having conversations, and I think Kate as well, as staff when we're having conversations, and having your perspective, Riley, is why we have you as regional assistant commissioner, because I think this is something new for our CDA staff to think about as well, because some of them have been hosting meetings for a long time, or they're kind of focused on like, okay, I'm doing the wolf education workshops. And they're not necessarily thinking, who else do I need to make sure is there? Do I need to make sure regional assistant commissioners are there? Do I need to, reach out to Ag Commission members? And so knowing that you guys are motivated and you want to be included in these gives us a little bit of a reminder to push our staff to remember to invite you all and to make sure that when things are scheduled, like it's not a week before it happens that you are finding out about it, right? Because you're busy people too. And we definitely want to and to Harrison's point, like thinking seasonally as well, we don't want to necessarily ask Nick to come to something when he's in the middle of calving season, but are there other opportunities that we could get you guys involved in? So So this is my problem that I am glad to have, is to think broadly and topically about how to get you guys involved, and then what does the logistics of that look like, and the nitty gritty, so that we can be connected. So I appreciate all that feedback. That's really good. And I will bring that back to staff that I'm working with on their outreach programs. Great. Anything else? Anything you want to add, Kate? Great. He just lets me do stuff. It's like,
All right. Thank you, Bethany, and thank you for all your hard work in scheduling all those things. And I think you've have gotten us to the right places at the right times, and we just keep moving
Mostly.
forward. We just keep moving forward on it. So, Amira, you're going to share with us the 2025 schedule.
Yes. So the dates that I have for the schedule, January 15th for a phone call or a virtual meeting, and then March 12th in person. May 14th is, we call it a short meeting, correct? Short meeting or
short
virtual. Okay. July 16th in person, September 17th virtual, and then November 12th back here in Broomfield. So at what point do we make a decision on the in-person locations for March and July?
Yeah, I think it would be great to talk about that now if we can, and try to pin down those 2 meetings that are on location in March and July. We do try to make sure that they're kind of spread around the state and we're touching different areas. So wanted to just open up the table for any suggestions from folks for different areas where we could potentially host those 2 meetings next year.
Catherine has a hand up.
So I guess I am going to argue with March in person. That's a really hard time to travel. So not a good choice for people to being able to attend, especially getting the west slope to the east slope or the east slope to the west slope. Is hard to cross the mountains in that time of the year.
And I'll throw out with Catherine, the Ag Day at the Capitol is in March at that time. And so that's traditionally been a time where we have invited Ag Commission members to come and maybe participate in things. So just going to throw that out. But
maybe split that away from the meeting.
Yeah, we will.
So is the suggestion to move the in-person meeting to another month? Was there something in particular in mind that would be better for travel? The tricky part we have is the rulemaking schedule. So we need to make sure that we can try to like accommodate it, since we'll have meetings every other month. But if we do change it from like an in-person meeting, we just might have more sturdy rulemaking sessions at our shorter meetings. We've been trying to kind of keep those agendas a little lighter. So keep that in mind, but is there another month that you would prefer to have that in-person meeting? April, would that be better for folks?
Beginning of April?
Or I'm sorry, the opposite month, right? So June, wait,
May.
Sorry, May.
May, yeah.
May or September.
September set up as a conference call at the moment. So it's May.
Yeah, so we can rework the dates and which is a long meeting and which is a short, but maybe we start with the dates that we have in front of you and see if we want to change short versus long. And if the dates don't feel right, then we can work that out. But this cadence will be easier on our end from an administrative standpoint. And then if the travel is the question, we can easily adjust when we're moving around the state.
So your suggestion is leaving the dates the same, just maybe change the.
Yeah, at least let's
conference
start
to
there and
the-
see
yeah.
if we can work that out. And then if we have to change dates, we can
Okay.
look at that.
I'm sorry, what was the date on the September one again?
Sure, September 17th.
You know, that's hard
That
for
one's really
potatoes.
tough for potatoes, yeah.
And we know May was really hard for David, but he made it work. And we know a few of you are calving in March. And then moving up to the high country. So we've gone through this trying to put all of your business hats on and try and figure out what would make sense. So we know we're not gonna be able to make something work every month for everyone, but you know, something that alleviates at least your biggest concerns. Like Catherine, I hear you on travel. You know, May is less likely to have the pass be closed, even though it could happen.
So would it feel better for a May and July, do our summer months traveling, or a May and September on the road? That way we're out of the winter.
Are we still gonna have in-person meetings?
You just cut out, so say that again.
Are we still gonna have a virtual option on the in-person meetings?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't know, as diverse a group as this is, I don't know that we're ever gonna find dates that are gonna work for everybody. I mean, it'd be great, but I see, it seems like we functioned pretty well with the virtual option for, I mean, obviously try and be in person, but the virtual option, certainly people can still interact.
I agree with Nick. If you leave the schedule the same and people that can make it can, and they can't, it's the option that we have to leave it virtual.
The only one that feels like a missed opportunity to me is that January is a conference call. It feels like that there's such a, well, I say this out loud, but I also know that there's a conference that I always go to during that window. But barring my participation, it feels like the only real obvious one is that January should maybe be in person because it's the one time that most folks have time. But that's the only generally, sort of general observation I have to make.
Catherine, would you prefer having a long in-person meeting in a month other than March?
Yeah, well, it depends on where it's going to be. If it's on the Western Slope, you're kind of limited to places we can get easily, because you don't want to go somewhere that's snowed in like Craig or somewhere like that, because one, we're not going to have boots on the ground except for in some conference center. And so I don't know. And then again, the same thing in July. If we go July somewhere in low altitude, it's super hot and a lot more stressful on people and harder to be outside. Like July in Grand Junction, or could be in the hundreds.
Well, I'm thinking about what Riley mentioned, and we could have a meeting out in Rangeley, or out in the Northwest, more in the summer months, perhaps.
Yeah, that's actually, I was gonna say, in Rifle or Rangeley in July would be perfect.
And Simon mentioned going to Southwest, which might be a good option for the March time, because that's still usually pretty, March anywhere in Colorado is a toss up, honestly. But March could be an option.
March and Toyac?
Yeah, it could be.
March and Toyac in July and Rangeley?
Sure.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's good with me.
Elena?
I mean, I'm so bad at planning anyway. I don't know, but it looks good. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, and who knows, we're gonna get a blizzard in July and we'll have great weather.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my planning happens like right before, but yeah, looks good. I think it's nice there's not one in April, because I will definitely not be available, so.
And with Toyac or Cortez, there's the Durango Airport and the Cortez Airport, so if it's really bad weather, flying can be an option down there.
Well, I will make note of that then, and go ahead and start looking into planning those things. That's good. Anything else on that I missed?
And that just means that whoever's in that area, so Simon, Catherine, Harrison, whoever, you get to work with me and Amira again on figuring out what we want to do in your area. So.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you. Let's see. 2024 CDA Board and Commission Annual Training, Department of Ag Training and Information, Madison.
Yes.
You're it.
So this is going to be, I will start off the training and then I will hand it over to Billy and he will finish up the training. So go ahead and Perfect. Okay. Welcome to your fiscal year 24-25 annual board and commission training. And so what we do this with our different boards and commissions. And so some of this you're going to say, Madison, I know this. And that's great that you already know this. And we're going to review it. So it's really ingrained in everyone's heads. This is wonderful. This presentation constitutes CDA's compliance with statute 24.3.7-102 and Colorado revised statutes to ensure that members of CDA's board and commissions understand their statutory obligations, the application of the Colorado Open Records Act and OML to their work, and how to identify and avoid conflicts of interest. First, we're going to dig in a little bit about our different CDA divisions and the Commissioner's Office. So as you can see on the right-hand side, we have all of our different divisions, and we have the Commissioner's Office that has about 22 FTE, so that's our number of employees. And our big highlight here is we have an entirely new division, the Division of Animal Welfare, that is headed up by Joe Stafford. And so I'm going to go through each of these briefly and give a little overview. So for animal health, the Animal Health Division works closely with livestock producers, veterinarians, industry associations, state and federal agencies to promote the health and marketability of Colorado livestock. And animal welfare is the newest addition to CDA. The Animal Welfare Division is dedicated to proactively ensuring the welfare and humane treatment of animals across the state. Next, we move on to our Brands Inspection Division. Serves as an essential purpose, including deferring theft, facilitating commerce, protecting livestock producers and lenders, providing accurate tracking of livestock movements for disease, traceability, and facilitating the return of stolen or stray livestock. Next, we have the Colorado State Fair, which celebrates Colorado's vibrant and diverse industries in 3 main areas. So they establish a gathering place for Pueblo and the southern Colorado communities, showcase and honor Colorado's agricultural industry, and as most people are familiar with, they put on the annual Colorado State Fair to celebrate our varied cultures, communities, and traditions across the state. Next, we have our Division of Conservation Services, which provides leadership on land and resource management issues, including federal lands. Next, we have our Inspection and Consumer Services Division that we commonly refer to as ICS, that conducts regulatory inspections, product sampling, and complaint investigations designed to protect agricultural producers and provide confidence to Colorado consumers. Next division is our Division of Laboratory Services that we will sometimes refer to as DLS, which compromises our laboratory operations in 3 different areas: animal health, biochemistry, and metrology. All 3 laboratories maintain a globally recognized standard, ensuring our testing services are very high quality and reliable. Next is our Markets Division, which aims to increase marketing opportunities for Colorado farmers, ranchers, food and beverage producers, and promote value-added business ventures and support the next generation of agriculturalists and leaders. And this is where you would find the Colorado Proud brand. Oh, plants. Sorry, plants was hiding.
Yes.
Below plants was hiding.
Yes.
Right there. Can we see plants? I know. So plants is right below markets. It's hiding right under there. And unfortunately, we can't see it at the moment. But our plants industry division protects and promotes the state's agricultural and horticultural interests. They regulate plant production, sales, and distribution, and implement programs to prevent the introduction and spread of plant pests and diseases. So it looks like our bottom is a little bit cut off on a few of these, and that's okay. We can go through that. And then at the very top of that list was the commissioner's office. And so what all does the commissioner's office include? Within the commissioner's office, we have our administrative functions. And so these are things that you'll be very familiar with around rulemaking, right, that we would be bringing to you. But also we maintain a fleet of vehicles across our different divisions. We have a fleet management support area, as well as building management that not only looks over our locations here in Broomfield, but also out at some of our leased and owned properties across the state. We have our communication folks who handle core requests that Bethany's incredibly familiar with. They also house our PIO, help with press releases and website updates and outreach, and really are leading us to be a very successful organization when it comes to accessibility, right? We do have a number of accessibility standards that we have to meet as an organization, and that they have done a ton of work of making sure that we're not only meeting our statutory obligation, but that we're exceeding it in many ways and providing an accessible environment for our stakeholders to be able to reach out to CDA. We also have our business operations unit that covers everything from accounting to budget to finance to procurement and payroll. We have our human resources group, and we also have our policy folks. Okay. Now, here's where I think everything gets even more fun, is whenever we talk about our strategic plan. And so this is something that Melissa presented to us back in a few Ag Commission meetings ago, I think when we were in Alamosa, I believe. Yeah. And what we're going to look at here is what really is the strategic plan here for CDA. Well, CDA's multi-year strategic plan, it's our compass, right? It really guides the work in 5 distinct directions that are going to not only support Colorado producers and workers, but provide services and programs to individuals throughout Colorado. So with our first strategic direction, we have people and community. And on the screen, you can say it's supporting individuals and communities in agriculture. But how are we actually doing that? And so things that we focus on in this area: expanding access to resources to agricultural workforce and employers, increasing internship opportunities for ag leaders, continuing partnerships with the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe and the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, increasing access to mental and behavioral health resources for producers and workers. Our next strategic direction number 2, market and economic productivity, says advancing the economic prosperity of producers. We are going to do that by expanding the Colorado Proud brand to be more dynamic and diverse, promoting marketing strategies and opportunities for climate smart agriculture, opening new national and international markets, and supporting the development of local food systems through investment and engagement. Our third strategic direction is environmental stewardship and climate resilience. So at CDA, we are tackling the current and future climate challenges that are facing Colorado agriculture. And to do that, we are focusing on advancing energy efficiency, renewable energy, and water resilience, expanding climate risk resilience initiatives through our soil health program, supporting community response to invasive pests, diseases, and noxious weeds, and expanding pesticide testing for public health threats. Strategic direction number 4, animal health and welfare, advancing the health and well-being of our companion animals and livestock. And we will do this by focusing on increasing capacity to respond to natural disasters that are impacting our ag communities, enhancing foreign animal disease preparedness and resiliency, advancing practical non-lethal predator mitigation tools and resources, and supporting long-term sustainability of Colorado's wild horses. Now, if you look at our strategic direction number 5, this one turns internal. So we're now looking at internal operational improvements to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of our internal process and supporting the success and growth of our staff. And we want to continue to do this by attracting and developing excellent employees, by supporting our employees to feel engaged and empowered, and targeting our communication outreach to new and diverse communities, and stabilizing and modernizing our technological infrastructure. Yeah, there we go, Rita. So what we do then we have our 4 that are externally focused. We have our 1 here from our strategic directions that is internally focused. And whenever we look at that internal operations and improvement, let me see where we go here. We're actually going to start to look at our goals, which are different from our strategic directions. And so what does that mean? People have heard the term WIG. It's a wildly important goal. And these come from the governor's office, and we set 3-year WIGs, which will carry us through our governor's term. And our WIGs identified for the next 3 years are really a subset of those high priority goals across the department. And they represent our strategic focus that don't just require us to meet the bar, but require us to go above and beyond. So for WIG number 1, we have expanding market access for agricultural businesses. So in the next 3 years, for this WIG, CDA's international marketing, climate smart marketing, and Colorado Proud programs will assist agriculture businesses with gaining or expanding their access to markets nationally and internationally. For WIG number 2, developing agricultural leaders, CDA is going to aim to assist in professional development over the next 3 years through efforts from our Ag Workforce Development Program and our Next Gen Ag Leadership Program and development programs. For advancing the Colorado Water Plan, we recognize that the very critical role of water here in Colorado and the need to adapt practices. So CDA plans to implement 12 initiatives over the next 3 years that are in line with the Colorado Water Plan. And then finally, one that we have been talking about even today, are reducing predator conflicts for producers. So CDA's goal over the next year is to establish a non-lethal predator conflict reduction program, which will provide critical resources and technical assistance to farmers and ranchers across the state through education on non-lethal deterrent methods, equipment, and other resources. Now we get into what does our budget look like? Which Jim Hughes was here for this to explain this better than I can. But if you look at our organization and how we are funded, we do have 4 main funding streams coming from the general fund, our cash fund, reappropriated funds, and finally our federal funds, with a total budget for this fiscal year of $76,670,000, supporting our almost 330 FTE, 326.9 individuals across the state. And so
Don't ask what happened to the .1.
What?
I said, don't ask what happened.
Okay, we don't talk about .1. Yeah.
That was our workers' comp.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of our issues. And so what does this look like for the organization, right? So here's our total bucket of money, but here's how it is spread out. And what's important to know here is administrative services really constituting, right, the commissioner's office and the different programs that we support and run here. But our agricultural services group also makes up our divisions that are not specifically called out on here. So if you look, the only specific divisions that are called out on here, conservation, state fair, brand board, and markets. And so our other folks that would include labs and ICS, right, they would fall into the agricultural services group.
And Madison, this is one thing that Jordan mentioned in his update, that we are looking to update this legislative session. So rather than just the 21 million in ag services, you'll see it broken out by division, and it'll be much clearer how we fund the department, which would be great.
All right, so now we're getting into what is CDA's responsibilities for boards and commissions whenever it comes to us being the principal agency. And so really what CDA supports here is our administrative functions that we touched on whenever we mentioned the commissioner's office around accounting, procurement, fleets and buildings, personnel, HR, hiring, salaries and benefits. Also a lot of the work of Jordan, Nola, and Bethany around legislation and lobbying and advocacy through the state, and then Jen Hughes's department of helping with budget and overseeing divisions and program budgets and approving of expenditures. Now, this is really fun. There are over 300 boards and commissions here at the state. The Agricultural Commission is one of those, and you all are a Type 1 board. What does a Type 1 board do? A Type 1 board, if we look at the top here, is administered under the direction and supervision of the Colorado Department of Agriculture and the commissioner, except that specific statutory powers, duties, and functions are executed independently of the commissioner, of which Billy will get into. And the board, the Ag Commission, may make recommendations to CDA, the governor or legislature, only as explicitly authorized in statute. Can I touch your statute?
Of course, yeah.
And if anyone is interested, we can go into it for you. Yeah, and it's precious, it is. I understand that. And there are also type 2 boards. The Ag Commission is not a type 2 board, but we have a number of type 2 boards here at CDA that we do support. And so for type 2 boards, their responsibility is all statutory powers, duties, and functions are under the direction and supervision of the Commissioner of Agriculture. They may make recommendations to CDA, the governor, or legislature, again, only as explicitly authorized in statute. Now, I get to hand the very fun part of this training for us to be in compliance with House Bill 181198 with training to Billy, who is our Attorney General representative here in the meeting with us, who will cover statutory powers, duties, and functions. We get to talk about CORA again, our Open Meeting Records Act, Open Meetings Law, and conflicts of interest, and our ethical responsibilities. So I will now stop sharing. And thank you.
Thank you, Madison. We will be tabling the board engagement training when Jordan's available to us for probably in the December meeting, virtual. So to do this, we need to go into executive session, correct, Billy?
Correct, thank you.
And so I do need someone that has verbiage in front of them to make a motion that we go into executive session.
I move we enter into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the board's attorney on matters related to the open meetings law, the Colorado Open Records Act, and conflict of interest pursuant to section 24(6), 402, 3A2 CRS.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second to that motion? David has seconded. There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Proceeding none, we'll proceed on to vote. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, so we will move into executive session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. Kate.
And you can give us just a second.
Yeah.
Billy, we're trying to make sure that we can close this to attendees.
And so will attendees be let back in at the end, or this, because we
No.
don't have any business
Yeah,
after
this
this,
is
right?
when we'll essentially say goodbye to any of our attendees who are on with the public. And so if we just want to say goodbye to them now, that would be great. We'll be entering into executive session, everyone, which is kind of a private session that we have for board members only. So all members of the public will be booted off. We will resume our regular session at the very end, but that's really just to formally adjourn the meeting. There will be no business conducted in that session. So thank you so much for joining us for this Ag Commission meeting. We really appreciate it. We hope you have a good day.
And interpreters will not stay for this session either.
And that is correct. Our interpreters are free to go as well.
Thank you.
And we're officially in executive session.
Thank you.
And Melissa, are we doing a separate recording or are you breaking the recording?
We can edit it on our end to break up the recording and pull this out, but Mary can stop it.
Go ahead and stop it.
And then we can resume it that way.